None of that was English. Were you putting, I think you were just putting a zin in your mouth while you're trying to talk. And I don't know. Has the show started? Has the show not started? I needed to finish. Just, it's a yes or no question. There we go. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the wild card round of the NFL playoffs here. We had the 2-game slate yesterday. We got a 3-game slate today. And then tomorrow, there's going to be a 1-game slate. There's actually a Millie Maker for the slate tomorrow as well. So we're going to do our usual thing here, building some lineups. And then it is going to be, instead of 90-minute live before lock and deeper dives, 60 minutes each for those shows. Didn't really need to go a full 90 minutes for just 3 games, but still plenty of football coverage on this show here on the YouTube channel. Total 2.5 hours of football coverage for this 3-game slate. So do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We also got a sale going on right now. If you guys want to check out our portfolio EV product over at OddsShopper right now, sign up with the promo code EV59 because this is the kickoff of the Super Bowl 59 run here. So if you use that promo code EV59, get yourself 59% off our portfolio EV tools. These are the tools I use to bet for myself. I use it on the thread that I've been doing on Twitter. If you guys have been following along with that, started the season with $100. Now it's at $475. And if you guys are a high volume bettor, low volume bettor, new to betting, I think these are tools that are good for everybody. So promo code EV59 to get yourself 59% off. And now let's start looking at the projections for today's 3-game slate, and they'll build some lineups. So, Jordan, let's start at the quarterback position. And yeah, we're going to be able to actually run through pretty much everybody here because there's kind of a limited amount of options on the slate. So you guys could see pretty much all of the players right here on screen. Leading the way at a 25 fantasy point projection, it's Josh Allen. Then we've got 23 fantasy points for Jaden Daniels, 20 fantasy points for Jalen Hurts and Baker Mayfield. Then there's a drop-off, 17.8 fantasy points for Bo Nix, the lowest projected starting quarterback on the slate. That's Jordan Love, 15 fantasy points for him. Next, we'll go and look at the running backs. And there's not that many running backs that are that relevant from a projection standpoint. We've got Bucky Irving and Saquon Barkley. They're both around 21 fantasy points. Josh Jacobs is at 17. He got 14.6 fantasy points for James Cook. That does it for running backs projected for north of 10 fantasy points. You got Brian Robinson at 9.5. You got Austin Eckler at 9 fantasy points. Jaleel McLaughlin, 8.5. So kind of slim pickings if you're looking to go cheap at running back. The one that is the cheapest that projects the best, it's Bucky Irving at 7K, and he's going to be popular. If you guys see the ownership projections on the side there, which I just realized we didn't really go over the ownership at a quarterback, but Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, those are the chalk guys there. But ownership at running back, Bucky Irving, 62.6% owned. We got Saquon Barkley projected for 41% ownership. Josh Jacobs at 31% projected ownership. James Cook at 27%. And then nobody else really all that popular at the position, which makes sense when you consider that we don't have any of these guys projected all that well. Eckler is a punt play. He's 12.5% owned. McLaughlin, 12% owned. So you might have to take some shots on these guys to save salary, but they aren't really projecting well. You're going to have one of these guys walk into a touchdown, I think, to get a decent game out of them. Or a running back gets injured and one of these guys that's in a split backfield like Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler, if one of them gets hurt, the other one could end up having a bigger game, but something that's kind of hard to project for. Wide receiver spot now. And no wideouts projected for north of 20 fantasy points. The 2 highest projected wide receivers on the slate. A.J. Brown, 18.7 fantasy points. Mike Evans at 18.3. Then we've got Cortland Sutton and Terry McLaurin, both around 15 fantasy points. Then you got Devonta Smith, Khalil Shakur, Jalen McMillan, all around 13.5 fantasy points. Then you got Romeo Doubs at 11, Jaden Reed right around 11. And those are all the wideouts that are projected for double-digit fantasy points. Ownership at the position, pretty spread out at wide receiver. You've got Khalil Shakur, Mike Evans, A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin, Devonta Smith, Jalen McMillan. All these guys are 29 to 33% owned. So those are your most popular players at the position, but no real significant chalk. And then you've got Cortland Sutton, 24% owned. Olamide Zaccheaus, he's 20% owned. That does it for the wideouts who are 20+% owned. There's a couple of other ones pulling ownership in the teens. That's Dontavian Wicks, Romeo Doubs, Marvin Mims, and Jaden Reed. Now at tight end, and this is not a very good tight end slate. We don't have the Mark Andrews situation without Zay Flowers. There's no Travis Kelce, Brock Bowers. Obviously, he's not here because they didn't even make the playoffs. So at tight end, we've got Zach Ertz, Dalton Kincaid, both projected for a little over 10 fantasy points. And those are your highest projected tight ends. Then you got Goddard, 9.5 fantasy points, Tucker Kraft, 9, Cade Otton, 8.3. It's a tough position to find a significant amount of upside. And there aren't any payups that even exist on the slate. And then as far as ownership goes, Ertz 30% owned, Kincaid 28%, Goddard is 24.6% owned, Tucker Kraft 23.3% owned, Cade Otton 12.5% owned. Nobody else pulling double-digit ownership at tight end. So that gives us a run through of the top projected players at each position and some of the ownerships. So let's start building some lineups here, Jordan. And if you guys have questions, I'll definitely be on the lookout for those, whether it's super chats, whether it's questions that come into Discord about looking at individual lineups. One thing that I think would be kind of fun to do for this is to try to quickly build a game stack of each game on both DraftKings and FanDuel. So we'll go pretty quick through this just because we don't have too much time if I actually want to pull this off to go through all of this too much. But let's start with, let's see, what's the order the games are being played in today? We can do it in that order. All right, so Denver Buffalo is first. So Denver Buffalo, Josh Allen, I think kind of has to be the quarterback we'd go with here. So let's plug in Josh Allen, Jordan. Okay, we'll go Josh Allen, and then stacked with Josh Allen, we'll go Khalil Shakur and Dalton Kincaid. And then let's plug in Courtland Sutton as a run back. Somebody shows up in a bunch of lineups for me anyway. All right, so here's the core of the lineup. And now at running back, let's go. It might be tough to fit Saquon Barkley in a lineup that has Josh Allen, but let's start Bucky Irving and Saquon Barkley. These are the two running backs that pull the most ownership, and it's for very good reason. All right, so that gives us a very limited amount left. So let's see at defense, plug in the Packers, I guess, at 2,600. Might not be able to make this work. Probably going to have to be a double tight end lineup. Let's see, is there a very cheap punt wide receiver? Go Sterling Shepard at 3,300. He's the cheapest wide receiver I like if you guys absolutely need a punt at wide receiver and save some salary. And now, all right, this is going to work. Whoever projects best. I assume it's going to be one of the tight ends. Yep, plug him in. Let's see how this looks. All right. Let's see. Can we make a positive ROI game stack of each game today? Good start. 119.5% sim ROI. So that's kind of the framework of what I would do if I'm stacking Josh Allen and making a game stack of Buffalo, Denver. All right. So now let's move to the next game, Jordan. This is going to be Green Bay and Philly. All right. So Green Bay, Philly. Jordan Love is going to be by far the most contrarian quarterback on the slate at $5,800. He also projects by far the lowest. Jalen Hurts, 7,300. One issue I have with Jalen Hurts, if I'm spending up a quarterback, I do prefer Jaden Daniels or Josh Allen. Let's just try a Jordan Love lineup. I want to see if we can make this work. And then let's do a double stack of Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed. And then Saquon Barkley will be the run back. We'll put Bucky Irving and Saquon Barkley in. Okay. Now for the other wide receiver spot, and we're not going to be too hamstrung for salary in this lineup relative to the other one we built. But let's see. Wide receiver, if we want to go a little bit, let's see if we can make this work with Mike Evans at 7,900. Okay. And then at tight end, go Kincaid again at 4K. Now, defense, let's see. Cheap defense here that we could go to. Boy, defense really doesn't matter that much for this slate. Just go to the Broncos at 2,400. I don't have a single. I've got like the same amount of exposure to all the defenses looking at my lineups in the Sims, and then whoever projects best here. Is it going to be Ertz again? All right. Zakia. By the way, I'm very impressed you pronounced that correctly, Jordan. Big shout outs to Jordan. Yeah, Holly Grove in the chat saying getting double tight end in so many sim lineups. Yeah, it's really not that surprising. By the way, this lineup didn't come out quite as good. 16% sim ROI. I do think it's kind of hard to build really good looking Jordan Love lineups. Wanted to give it a go. Yeah, there just isn't that much value on the slate, but there are a lot of studs to pay up for. And just as a result, the best points per dollar plays on the cheaper and actually do end up being those tight ends. So not surprising that we're getting to double tight end lineups. Mike says, why is the screen black? I don't know. See, yeah, seems to be looking good to me, unless he's referring to something else. But either way, all right. So we got that game in the books. Now let's go and do for the Sunday night game, Washington and Tampa Bay, which I think has potentially be a super, super fun shootout. Baker Mayfield, really strong option. Jaden Daniels also a really good option. Jaden Daniels and Josh Allen, those are the two most popular quarterbacks on the slate. Let's go to Baker Mayfield, though, at $6,800 and try to get a little bit of salary relief with him. All right. So we'll go Baker Mayfield. And then, when we build out the FanDuel lineups, we'll do it with the quarterbacks we didn't use for the DraftKings lineups we built. So we've got, let's go Mike Evans and let's go. Let's go McMillan. And do we want to still? I think we still kind of have to go with Bucky Irving. He just projects so well relative to the other running backs that any lineup that doesn't have him in it, I think it's going to come away with a pretty poor sim ROI. Let's see. But instead of Saquon Barkley, let's go James Cook in this lineup at 6,700. Let's see how this ends up looking. And then at defense, just go to the Packers. We don't have Barkley in this lineup, so maybe the Packers defense at $2,600. That's potentially a little bit more viable. Tight end now. Go to, how about Tucker Kraft at 3,700? We haven't done a Tucker Kraft lineup yet. All right, still 5K left at wide receiver. Let's try out, put Shakir in here at 5,300. And then who's best at flex? Maybe we go a little bit more expensive than Shakir. All right, so instead of Shakir at wide receiver, let's plug in Courtland Sutton at 6,600. Now, who's best at 3,500? Okay, yeah, let's do that. This is a crazy heavy stack of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's see if it's too much. This is a QB +4 stack. 3-game slate, so it's a little more viable than on a regular slate. But hey, came out looking pretty decent. 77.1% sim ROI. We do have a Veto Power left us a super chat here. He said, can we run Jaden Daniels? All right, so we didn't do a Jaden Daniels lineup on DraftKings. This will be a little bit different. He wants Jaden Daniels, Saquon Barkley, Bucky Irving, Terry McLaurin, Sterling Shepard, Jalen McMillan, Zach Ertz, Alameda Zacchaeus, and then the Eagles defense. So he is doing a Jaden Daniels, triple stack, right? He's got McLaurin, he's got Ertz, and he's got Zacchaeus. Yeah, and then the Eagles defense. I think this one's going to come out pretty decent. I don't have issues with any of these individual players. You got some good correlation in here. You've also got a couple of run backs and Bucky Irving and Sterling Shepard. Oh no, three run backs because McMillan's in the lineup as well. Yeah, that looks really good. Veto Power, really heavy game stack, and I think that game is the most live to be a shootout with any game on the slate. I like that. Looks good. All right, let's build out these FanDuel lineups, and same deal. We'll build out 3 FanDuel lineups, one for each game on the slate, but we'll go with the opposite quarterbacks for this one to give us a little bit of different looks. So at quarterback on FanDuel, we're going to plug in Bo Nix. who's super low owned on FanDuel. So for FanDuel purposes, Jordan Love is 3.5% owned. Bo Nix is 7.6% owned. And then on the other side of this game, Josh Allen is 32% owned. But let's go Bo Nix. All right. And then to stack with Bo Nix, let's go Cortland Sutton at 7,100. And is there anybody else who really shows up? Yeah, we could go Marvin Mims at 5,900. That could be a double stack. Bo Nix, I really think you could do a single stack with Bo Nix just because he has the rushing ability. And then I don't think he's going to have the same upside in terms of volume of passing as other quarterbacks today. But still, I think that this is a reasonable looking double stack. Then at running back, let's go Bucky Irving. And let's see, what do we have for salary? I think we go up to Barkley again. On FanDuel, Josh Jacobs at $7,800. I think FanDuel, Jacobs is a stronger option. He is on DraftKings. Not that he's poor on DraftKings, but he shows up in about half my lineups on FanDuel. So if we aren't able to fit Saquon Barkley in some of these lineups, I don't have any issue with flipping that to Josh Jacobs and save $7,800. I just don't think it's going to be necessary in this Bo Nix stack. For defense, let's go to let's plug in the Commanders at 3,900. Or actually, let's go Buccaneers at 4,200 just because we have Bucky Irving in the lineup. Yeah, Buccaneers at 4,200. The cheap defenses on FanDuel, you've got the Broncos at 4,100. You got the Commanders at 3,900. Packers 3,700. Buccaneers 4,200. Just trying to find the one that doesn't negatively correlate with the lineup that we've built. At tight end, boy, tight end on FanDuel, they're like all the same price. And about the same projection too, without the PPR. So at tight end, let's go Kincaid as the run back at 5,500. And now, what is that left for the final two spots, Jordan? Okay. I think Shakir and McMillan is probably what's going to sim out the best for those final two spots there. Yes, we'll see how this looks. I think this one will be solid. Pretty contrarian lineup. Of all the ones we've built so far, one of the more contrarian ones with Bo Nix at quarterback on FanDuel. And yeah, it came out looking really good. 116% sim ROI. So both on FanDuel and DraftKings. The lineups that we built that simmed the first game on the slate, one with Josh Allen, one with Bo Nix, they both ended up coming out pretty good. All right. Let's go to the next game on the slate, which is Green Bay and Philly. So over on DraftKings, we went with Jordan Love at quarterback, and that ended up being a pretty weak lineup. Didn't come out looking all that good. So let's try Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts kind of tough to get to on FanDuel. He's $8,300. Same sort of thing I said before. It applies to FanDuel as well as DraftKings. I'm going to have Jalen Hurts lineups today, but I'm going to have more Jaden Daniels lineups. I'm going to have more Josh Allen lineups. So somebody's just playing 1, 2, 3 lineups. My preference is to pay up for one of the other quarterbacks and not Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts will be somebody who's in like 10% of my lineups or something like that. It looks like on my first run of Sims. So Jalen Hurts at QB. Let's stack him with AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, and then we won't play Barkley in this lineup. Okay, and then running back, let's go Jacobs and Bucky Irving. So Jacobs will serve as a run back in this lineup. Defense, plug in the, let's see. Let's plug into this lineup. Oh, we only have the Broncos defense projected for 4 fantasy points. I mean, the highest projected defense, it's the Bills at 7. Let's go to, yeah, I guess just put in the Commanders at 4,200. We'll give us some positive correlation with Bucky Irving. It's just going to be the one that shows up the most in FanDuel lineups. Wide receiver, tight end, flex left, and what's that salary remaining on average, Jordan? All right. Let's see. So let's go tight end, plug in Tucker Kraft. We'll get another little piece of correlation in here. That'll give us a little bit more flexibility with the salary. And then wide receiver, I guess go to Zacchaeus at 5,600. And now who projects best for the flex? That works. Let's go with Zach Ertz. Cheap tight ends are projecting better than the cheap wide receiver. So if you look at like that 5K range, we've got Dontavian Wicks at 7.4 fantasy points. There's Diami Brown. He is at 4.84 fantasy points. And then the cheap tight ends, Tucker Kraft 7.37, Dalton Kincaid 8.5. So same as on DraftKings FanDuel is going to be a bunch of double tight end lineups. In this lineup, neutral, wasn't great, wasn't terrible. Same deal, FanDuel and DraftKings. On DraftKings, we tried a Jordan Love lineup. Didn't come out all that great. On FanDuel, we tried a Jalen Hurts lineup. That one also didn't come out all that great. So this does look like, at least per our Sims, the hardest of the 3 games to stack today. Let's go ahead and build one for the final game on the slate. I see that Tom Payne, I'll answer this really quick, but he wants to know, how do you sub in best ball? You can't. You can't change out your lineups for best ball. It's just whoever scores the most fantasy points, that's who you get. If there's an injury, you're stuck with those players. So final game of the night, we are going to go with Jaden Daniels at quarterback, because we went and built the Baker Mayfield lineup over on DK. So we'll go Jaden Daniels. By the way, went really quick. I wasn't sure we were going to have time to build out the game stacks for both sites, but didn't end up being an issue. Still got 5 minutes left to go here, so might be able to play around and build one more final lineup. Jaden Daniels, and let's stack Daniels with... we'll go Zach Ertz at tight end. But one thing that's kind of tough looking at my exposures here is... So Terry McLaurin's kind of the obvious stacking partner with Jaden Daniels. The problem is, with him being $7,700, I would rather pay up for AJ Brown. I'd rather pay up for Mike Evans. I'd rather save a little bit of salary with Cortland Sutton. So Terry McLaurin, going to plug him in here at $7,700, but I do think he's going to potentially hurt this lineup a little bit. So let's go Terry McLaurin. Then maybe we'll try one after this where it's just super cheap with Olamide Zaccheaus and Zach Ertz. Let's go Bucky Irving as a run back. And then, actually, let's change this out right now. Instead of Terry McLaurin, Jordan, plug in Zaccheaus, because I think that'll allow us to get to both Saquon Barkley as well as Bucky Irving. And I think that would come out better. Yeah, so Barkley here. And now we're going to have to go as cheap as we can at defense. So just go Packers D at 3,700. Might need that salary flexibility. So now wide receiver, let's go McMillan and Shakur. They're 64 and 6,100. And then who fits in the flex? Who's the best projected player? All right, so we actually are going to have to rebuild this a little bit. Oh, you know what? Let's go back. Let's put in, instead of Dobbs, take Dobbs out, Jordan. All right, let's just do the McLaurin instead of Zaccheaus and see what that gives us in the flex. Who's the best in the flex now? All right. I mean, there's at least correlation there. Let's plug him in. I think this lineup could be played around with a little bit. Although, who knows? Maybe let's just come out with a really good sim ROI. Not great, not bad either. 27.2%. Let's see. How about changing? What can we change in this lineup? All right, let's take out McLaurin. And let's take out Diami Brown. All right, so let's go back to Zaccheaus. I'm curious if we could play around with the defenses, because we do have the Packers defense against Saquon Barkley. What if we just go to the Bills defense? Maybe this could help. And now who's the best projected player for the flex? And that leaves how much salary on the table? Okay, let's see how this one looks. Let's see how this looks. Maybe it'll be better. The other thing we could try doing, all right, that's better. 49.3% sim ROI. Instead of Ertz at tight end, I wonder what if we go to, so take Ertz out. Let's try punting at wide receiver. So take out, let's see. Take out Dobbs. Okay. And now put in Diami Brown. See if we go really cheap with the stack options with Jaden Daniels. And now, let's see, the wide receivers, we had Shakir, we had McMillan. Let's take out, let's see, who can we fit AJ Brown in for? Try taking out McMillan and go to AJ Brown. And then do we have anybody who's reasonable tight end that fits now? We can make the defense cheaper. Instead of the Bills defense, switch that to the Broncos at 4,100. All right, let's try that. I don't know if this is going to be better than the last one, but it's different. And then it is going to be time for me to wrap up. So if you guys haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Right after we check out the sim ROI of this lineup, we got the deep dive. So Laffy and Ben Raza, they're going to be on for the next hour, followed by Matt Kajeski and Eric Lindquist for the final hour of the program here. And yeah, ended up coming okay. We weren't able to build out a great Jaden Daniels stack here over for FanDuel, but we gave it our best effort. So guys, that is going to do it for me today. Enjoy all the games today. Good luck and stick around. 2 more hours of football coverage coming your way. If you want to sign up for Odd Shopper, don't forget to use that promo code EV59 through the link below in the YouTube description box. Why not get yourself 59% off? Have a great day, guys. See you back here on the channel tomorrow.
1 off.
Yeah, right.
Fuck, do I have that? Go ahead, you go.
We'll see. We'll see how it plays out now going into this, because you got 2 games, right? You still got 4 to go.
So much. Yep.
But yeah, it seemed a bit ominous early on. Actually, after the first game, I was like, hey, not bad. Second game. Hey, good morning. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Deeper Dive. Only an hour today, starting a little later than we usually do. And then you got Live Before Lock coming up after this. That would be because we have 3 games on the schedule. Wild card weekend. We're here. It's kind of sad. It's bittersweet. It's good that we've got playoff football, but it's coming to an end. Either way, we're going to break it all down. Dave Lochran, Ben Rasa. What's good, brother?
Yeah, man. This is a little 3-game match. It's 2 games, 3 games. It's like, oh, it's all the same. So different. So different. Just having 1 extra game. So I like this a little better. And we have so many slates. We had slates yesterday, slates today. You're playing Saturday, Monday. A lot to break down, but I'm feeling pretty good. I thought I got off to a pretty good start yesterday. I'm not going to lie. So playoffs have been good so far.
Good.
Yeah.
And Greg told me this, the other day when we were doing the Friday show, because I hadn't even looked. There is a Millie Maker for the showdown slate tomorrow.
And you and me will be talking about it. So yeah.
Oh, nice. You doing Live Before Lock with me?
I'll be there, pending I don't die between now and then. And I'd say that's unlikely, but you never know. So I'm excited to talk about that. There's Millie Makers today, tomorrow. A lot of money up for grabs. We got games to tackle, so let's dig.
Make it happen. Hey, if you guys don't mind, take a single second. It is Sunday. Atone for your sins. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. It's free. Free. All of it. Yes, 100%. If you hate it, just click unsubscribe. You can even hit the thumbs down if you decide. Do it twice, though. And subscribe to the channel. Yeah, appreciate you guys. Anyway, let's get into this one because we've got 3 games. 3 games. Got the Birds on the slate.
Yeah, how do you feel?
Someone hit me up yesterday on Twitter. He's like, how you feeling about the Eagles, man? He's an Eagles fan. He's like, I'm scared. Like, dude, go into every Eagles game expecting a loss, hope for a win, and you'll be fine. You know what I mean? I go in as pessimistic as humanly possible. It's intentional. It's evolutionary, Ben.
I always adopt the Birds as like I have no teams. I don't really care. But I'm rooting for the Eagles. I always seem to end up rooting for them. I like them. I'm rooting for the Bills, obviously, because I like them. But I feel pretty good. I know Green Bay's a dangerous team, but I'll be honest. I think that Philly should handle them today pretty easily.
I don't want to hear that. Cut that part out.
No. Smooth sailing. No bumps in the road. Just might as well have a bye.
Mike D said, if you're scared, get a dog, Laffy. Well, Mike, I do have a dog. I'm not scared. This is just an evolutionary process, a rapid one. As an Eagles fan, you just learn to, Vikings fans out there, I would imagine, think the same way. Except that's kind of not true. I always see these overconfident Vikings fans. It's like, why? What are you doing to yourself? Just gonna look dumb. And if you sit back and let it play out and the Vikings end up going to the Super Bowl, that's awesome. But if you're out there talking a ton of shit and then they had a nice unceremonious first round exit like they did against the Giants a couple of years ago, you don't want to be in that position. You know what I mean? Brandon Wagner, before we get started, who has the most cash incentives today? Dude, why would you do that to me? Yeah, how did Mike Evans do?
We need an hour. We need a 90-minute show.
A lot of people calling us dumb last week over that.
Yeah,
I swear, if anyone pops in and goes, yeah, but he hit his incentive. Yeah, they had the game locked up, but guess what? Mike Evans was not someone you'd want in DFS at 8K, despite getting 88 or whatever it was total yards on the day. So chalk one up for the good guys. All right, you ready to get into it?
Get into it.
So 3 games, kick it off with Denver and Buffalo. And I want to throw this out to you and to everyone listening first. If you feel, because this is a 3-game slate, right? There's a lot more nuance. It's far more compact. If you feel like it's necessary to jump around to get a point across, right? Just because of the makeup of the slate, like how you're building lineups is just so much different. Do that. don't hesitate to jump around in certain spots and be like, well, I'm doing the build with this, and I kind of, because going game by game sets us up fine, but it's not like there's no optimal way to do this type of show. That's what I'm saying.
No doubt about it. Yeah, we're trying, yeah, 6 teams, most of the good players. I don't think it helps anyone for us to say, Saquon, he's in play today. We know that. It's game theory. Where are you making your stands? How are you trying to be different? We don't normally talk about dupes. Obviously on Showdown we do, but on a main slate, that's not something. 3 games, are you leaving money on the table? Are you playing some guys against your own defense? Are you omitting a full game? These are little things that can help make the difference.
Absolutely. Last thing, Tango Hotel said, we're trying to cope with being a cursed franchise. Tango, if there's any piece of advice I could give anybody, hear me out. Go in with a strictly negative vibe. It's fantastic. I do it. Every Eagles fan should do that. Many of us
You're
do.
a cursed fan.
No, I'm not saying the Eagles are cursed. No. He's talking about the Vikings. Oh. I'm saying, but as an Eagle, like I'll get texts from my buddies after one bad drive or like like the Cowboys game the other week. And they're like, well, fun season, boys. And everyone goes, yep. Yeah, it was fun. We'll get them next year. And then you win. If you lose, you get to say, I told you so. We suck. And then at least you had the vindication that you were right. If you win, you've never been happier to have been wrong. Do you see what I'm saying? Like it's a cheat code in life.
Yeah, it's called the life hedge.
It is.
Yeah, it's like when I bet Notre Dame in life.
So when they lose, you go, I knew I shouldn't have. Like I shouldn't have.
When they lose, I'm happy. And if they win, I win money.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Life hedge.
So that's all. Anyway, let's talk about it. Bills and Broncos. You had a very interesting take on this on Tuesday. Do you share the same opinion now, 5 days later?
I do. And my opinion is that of the big favorites, and certainly it's clear now because the Steelers already rolled out their carcass of a team yesterday. I don't love this matchup for the Bills, and it's come down a little. You were getting plus 400 on that money line. It's dropped to about 350 everywhere. Bills are a superior team. Bills are at home. Bills are the rightful heavy favorite. I definitely think there are scenarios where this is a little greasy. You want to talk about cursed franchises, they would be at the top of that list. Now, bringing it back to DFS, I think you clearly have targets on both sides, and I'm interested to see how active Bo Nix is with his legs. If he starts running for his life and the game devolves, he's a cheap quarterback that I actually built some teams that I like around. So I'm not ruling out that the Broncos hang in this game.
I'm not either. Jason Jerk, settle down, big fella. I'm not either, but I would say this. If I was betting this game, because I didn't. I had a nice betting day yesterday. Was on Houston. Really like that. I think there was way too much public sentiment shifting towards the Chargers and away from Houston. I know you agreed. We were on the same page there. I also got so lucky on the under in the Baltimore game. It was under 44, and it was 42 points with 3 minutes left in the third, and not another point was scored.
I mean, I got lucky too. I had Pickens anytime touchdown, and it seemed like Pickens anytime reception was going to be a sweat. And then he just spin moved his way in. So,
and then when asked if he was optimistic about the future, said, nah.
That's because he's smart, because you shouldn't be optimistic. They don't know what they're doing.
So if I'm betting this game, you know what I would do? I would do what I did with Tampa last week. And I would or was that 2 weeks ago? Yeah, 2 weeks ago. And just bet an alt line, bet an alt spread on Buffalo, right? Because I'm with you in that I could see this game getting odd and weird. But if it ends up doing what I think it could do, where Buffalo blows them out, because let's not ignore the fact this is still a very inexperienced football team in Denver. As cursed as Buffalo may be, particularly in the playoffs, they still have a ton of postseason experience. I mean, a lot. There's a very realistic possibility they come in and win this game by 3 touchdowns.
This is one of these, and I said this in Discord, by the way, we're hanging out in Tails talking about this game. And I hate to say this, but I really do believe this. And I said it. This is the type of game I think that the best 2 bets in the game are Broncos money line and like Bills minus 20.5.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
It's a weird game like that where if the Bills win 42-10, it's not like, oh my God, Broncos money line. It's like, yeah, no, that was in the range. I actually think that makes a lot of sense. But it's just one of those games. And so I think you could take it either direction, but I actually like taking it to an extreme, whichever way you go.
Me too. My extreme is going to be Buffalo.
Mine will probably be Denver.
Right. I get it. We do see it a bit differently, but on the Denver side, from a DFS standpoint, I look around and the backfield is just this might be, you know what? I think if we were to give out awards, right? Grossest pass catching core in the league probably goes to the Patriots this year. Grossest backfield in football. I wouldn't even say it's the Raiders, because you got some decent weeks from a few of those guys. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was bad, but I think it has to go to Denver from a DFS. Like, if you're doing DFS awards between McLaughlin and Williams and Estime, is there a worse backfield to try and find anything from every week? And now we're talking about it on a 3-game slate.
Brutal. I mean, just look at it. There is nobody getting anything, and it's not even. So the crazy thing to me, sometimes you have backfields where it's, and there's an element of this, but where it's like, you know what, there's no priority, but we're going to ride the hot hand. You give a guy a couple carries in the first quarter and he breaks it off and he ends up getting 70% of the snaps in that game. It's a fluid situation. It just feels like no matter what happens, these guys are all coming in with 25 to 35% of the snaps. And it's really difficult to decipher. Obviously, McLaughlin has some passing upside, but I don't know, I guess you could bank on Estime maybe getting some looks in the red zone. I'm not doing much of this. It's almost an impossible backfield to really break down. And then there's the caveat. There's a very real chance none of them play well.
Yeah, there's also the caveat that, and Kicks Good got there before I did in chat. There's also the caveat that Bo Nix is their leading rusher today.
Very, very possible.
Are you going to, I mean, if you have this thought process on how the game plays out, right? I mean, we were talking about it from a betting angle, but it's 100% there's crossover to DFS here. Are you going to be getting to some Bo Nix lineups? Because you've got guys like Sutton and Mims who's come on strong lately. Outside of that, it gets kind of tough, whether it's like Devon Vele or Franklin or, Tim Patrick's back. Would you be entertaining this?
Yeah, I do have some Bo Nix, more so because of the rushing upside, and he's cheap. It's funny. It's like ironic. I actually think if I could choose which path the game takes for my Bo Nix lineups, I almost hope you cash your ticket more than me. Because I think if the Broncos stay close, the entire game is probably underwhelming from a DFS standpoint. Whereas if the Bills are just crushing them, I think Bo Nix could rack up a lot of statistics, just hollow statistics, but they all count the same for us.
Man, it's funny you say that, because if it stays close, it's a shootout.
Really? No, I don't see that at all. I think if the Broncos win, it's like 20-13.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they have a good defense, but also a ton of inexperience from a playoff perspective in defense. Maybe I'm crazy. I have a tough time thinking Buffalo doesn't find ways to move the football in any matchup right now. Like, to me, they're kind of, in the same vein as like this Bengals team was, outside of that last game against Pittsburgh, which meant a lot. But yeah, okay. I don't hate it. I don't hate like a Nick Sutton. I don't know how I feel about a double, but on the other side, I actually think it's kind of easy to get to some Josh Allen spots here. He's expensive. I know you don't typically love paying up for Josh Allen. This is one of those slates where I will be doing a decent amount of that. And the reason is it's not that hard. Okay, if you wanted to pay up for Baker or let's say Jalen Hurts, you've got Hurts, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. Devonta Smith's not expensive. Brown is. It means you're foregoing Barkley in those lineups for sure. You'd have a real tough time making that work. There's not a lot of value on this slate. If you wanted to go Baker, you could, Evans, McMillan. Baker's not cheap anymore. That happens when you throw 4,500 yards and 41 touchdowns. With Josh Allen, he's the really expensive one. Outside of that, though, you've got a $5,300 Khalil Shakir, who I would argue is actually a little bit underpriced. You have Dalton Kincaid. The pricing here isn't the concern. The concern is that you also have Keon Coleman and Amari Cooper and James Cook and all of these guys. Their motto at the beginning of the year, I'm not making this up, it was like, I think it was everyone eats. And unfortunately, they've held that throughout the season. So you're still kind of throwing darts, even if you're stacking Josh Allen, but I like it. And I even think Josh Allen's single stacks, given it's a postseason game, and I know your philosophy on this, looks pretty good as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's no it. You already highlighted this, but just to kind of fill it in, it's true. Like when you start playing with Baker stacks, the average of the stack goes up when you start filling in his weapons. You know, Bucky or Evans, who are probably the guys that you're going to want with him. When you do it with Josh Allen, it starts to dramatically drop because you're pairing him with a 5K guy. So now you're talking about, say, two players, and the average is like 66 and change, you know, Josh Allen +1. Whereas with Baker, it starts to be the same number, a little higher, actually. So it isn't that. It's just a matter of, you mentioned it, you have 4, 5, 6 guys, or Josh Allen could run the ball, you know, have 3 touchdowns on the goal line, and you don't want any of them. I definitely got to some Josh Allen. Kincaid, a lot of these are very nuanced. You know, Kincaid over Shakir over Amari for me. I mean, that's kind of how I did it, but I'm mixing and matching with Josh Allen.
You have to. It's pretty crazy though. If you were to take Baker with Evans and McMillan, mind you, I have so much Bucky Irving that I would assume Irving's going to be in a lot of those lineups. But if you were to take those 3, you have 5K per player remaining. If you took Hurts, AJ, and Devontae Smith, you have 4,900 per player remaining. If you take Josh Allen plus Shakir and Kincaid, you have 5,400 remaining. So to your point earlier, that's actually the cheapest stack of the 3 if you're playing it that way. And you can't really get you can't actually get the Josh Allen stack more expensive.
No, that's what I mean. There are no the most expensive bill is James Cook outside Josh Allen. And I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do that, but
I like James Cook today. I would assume you don't because of the Bills defense, but James Cook just typically ends up being that guy that, you know, goes overlooked. I don't think that'll be the case today because there's 0 value at the running back spot. I mean, value stinks. So I'm still he's my 3rd highest exposed, but he's a good amount behind. He's a ton behind Irving, a good amount behind Barkley. I have the same amount basically of him and Josh Jacobs. Want to throw one other guy out there. I think if you're really desperate for cheap value and you're going with an expensive stack, Ty Johnson, I think there's a possibility here that you have a situation where Ray Davis as a rookie running back doesn't get the work and Ty Johnson is the second guy there. You know, they had Latavius Murray last year along with Cook and Ty Johnson, and Johnson still had 15 carries through 2 postseason games. I think 18 total looks, which is not bad. You know, you're talking 9 total looks per game in those spots. I'm not saying that's a, 1-to-1 here, but I don't think it's the craziest idea if you're playing these super large field Millie contests and you need a cheap guy. He'd be the only running back I'd really have interest in and who's cheap. I'd take him over Estime.
I'd take him over Estime. I don't really want to do any of that though. I
don't either for what it's worth.
Yeah, I kept it pretty condensed at my running back spots, and I paid up.
Who else in this game? Because Buffalo still has Amari Cooper's receiving yards prop is 26.5 today.
Yeah, I mean somebody's getting squeezed. It's just very hard to know who else from this game. It's not a lot. It's Sutton, obviously. I have him attached to Knicks, but I also have some independent. Mims is, I mean, listen, Mims is an awesome player, but he also, it's worth noting, he caught 4 touchdowns in the last 2 games. He had 13 targets, which isn't bad, but when you're catching touchdowns at that rate, you're going to look really good, and the price has risen. I don't really have much else. I'm not playing a Broncos tight end. You obviously can play the defenses. I think all 6 defenses, it's just price dependent. So I don't really have anything to say there.
All right. I think Josh Allen can carve up any defense. That's the truth. However, the fact that Khalil Shakir is someone they'll move around a lot, that to me still makes him my favorite option here. I don't want to go out on, I don't want to be too extreme, but I don't know how close it even is.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing, they don't have like a super alpha wide receiver that Surtain is just going to be like, at least in my opinion, focused on. That's just not how the Bills really operate. So
no, but 73% in the slot for Khalil Shakir this year, I think is significant when you consider that Keon Coleman and Amari Cooper are predominantly outside receivers. That's what I'm saying. Like, but for what it's worth, it's not like their slot coverage is bad in Denver, but they have a couple shutdown spots outside. Even Riley Moss is good.
It's a good defense. There's no doubt. Now I'll be interested. Chat pointed this out, and I totally agree. It's a good defense, and they have been carved up by the elite offenses like Buffalo in the past. So something's going to give. But we'll see. Yeah, Shakir at 53 is a very solid target. Kincaid, somewhat touchdown dependent. That's really how I structured it. I'm in line with the field on this game.
Yep. Yeah, they gave up 30 to Cincinnati, albeit in overtime. They gave up 34 to the Chargers as well. They can be had, right?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. But they also, I mean, again, they're going to need some breaks. There's no doubt. But I don't think the Bills are immune to stalling in the red zone, having a turnover here. They're going to need some of that. If the game is played straight up, Buffalo's winning this game.
Sure. Who really sliced and diced them was Jameis Winston.
That's what he does.
He does. Yeah. But for me, Allen, Shakir are two priorities for me in this game, just to get it on the table. Dalton Kincaid would be another one. It's just not a very strong tight end position today. I like Kincaid a lot. A quarter of my lineups have James Cook as well, a little bit more than that. So I have a decent amount of Cortland Sutton. It's a 3-game slate, so I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
But Marvin Mims, to your point, would be one of the guys that I'm not getting a lot of, and I don't really think I'm going to change that. I have a lot more Josh Allen than I do Bo Nix as well. And I have 3% Jaleel McLaughlin. I'm not going to try and boost him up or anything like that. I don't really feel like guessing here on that backfield.
Yeah, I mean, I have a splash of him with Bo Nix actually, but it's nothing important, and that's about it for me. I don't have a lot of Mims. What is this? Thoughts on interesting question. Brandon Wagner, appreciate that. Thoughts on paying up for 3 running backs in single entry. So basically Bucky, James Cook, and Saquon. I'm trying to see if I did that.
I don't think it's insane. I haven't tried. I don't know. I'm sure I have 1 or 2. The only reason I don't think it's nuts is because if Saquon goes off, the whole Eagles passing game is going to suffer as a result. And you have a not run first, but a mobile quarterback. So if you're just looking at all of these wide receivers, there's definitely paths for them to not get there.
The biggest thing that hurt for me is I use double tight end to save salary, and you can't do that when you go get all 3.
And you kind of need to find ways to save salary, honestly.
That's where it's tricky.
Yeah. I don't know how easy it would be.
I have so much double tight end.
My guess is it's just not easy at all, right?
You're going to need pay down Packers and maybe like a Zacchaeus or Sterling Shepard, and you're probably punting your defense.
Yeah. Yep. It's the way I see it as well. All right. Oh, Tyler Beatty is active. Rookie Audric Estime is inactive. Fuck.
What does that mean?
Well, I think it means that you probably have to give. No,
Javonte?
I mean, seriously, it means you probably have to give a bit of a boost to McLaughlin and Javonte Williams.
Maybe they've been waiting for Tyler Beatty.
Thanks, Ron, by the way. Yeah. Yeah. Just throwing it out there. Keep that in mind. They can tackle that on live before lock as well. Want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, I might. Yeah.
What are you thinking?
I'm just looking. I'm on Odd Chopper. I'm looking what Javonte anytime touchdown is, because that's the type of stupid bet that I like to make. Yeah, let's move on though.
I don't know how much Estime affects him though, like from a touchdown equity.
I mean, someone's gonna if they're say they get pass interference in the end zone. I mean, maybe it's in Bo Nix, but is okay. What if they're on the 3?
No, I'm not saying that definitively. I would just think Bo Nix would.
I would too, but say they're on the 3-yard line. Like who's getting? I would assume it's Javonte, right?
I don't know, dude. He has fallen so far out of favor that I don't know. Like only 2 games ago in a must-win spot, he had 0 rushing attempts.
Saving him.
Yeah, that's it. All right, let's talk Packers and Eagles. Fun game here, 4:30. So happy they're not playing like Monday night game. Yeah. 5.5 points. This one opened at 3.5 and quickly got moved to 5.5 back to 4.5. It's at 5.5 again. So I'll tell you, when I just the first look at a game like this, normally it's like, okay, Barkley, obviously, and it is still. I mean, Barkley's just going to be a great play. AJ Brown. I don't have a ton of Jalen Hurts. I have around 10%. I'm not surprised by that, just given kind of the restrictions there when you're building lineups. But my third highest owned receiver, not on this team, but on the slate right now, is Devonta Smith. They've priced him on DraftKings to a point where at 5,700, he's just simply tough to get away from. There's a guy that we could never play before because he was 7K every week.
It's almost like they were hedging their bets that maybe AJ Brown was going to sit. I don't know. He is very cheap. It caught my eye, and I'm probably going to try to add a little more because I didn't get a ton. I actually don't have a lot of the Eagles passing attack. I'm a little freaked out by that. I don't have a lot of AJ Brown. I have a healthy amount of Devonta Smith, but I have so much Saquon. It's really difficult to get Saquon. And I mean, you can do Saquon and Smith pretty easily, but if you go Saquon and AJ Brown, I don't really know how that works. Because you're not going to get to Hurts, and if you do that, then you're talking like half your salary on 3 guys.
I've got some Saquon AJ Brown lineups. Here's one. It also has McMillan, Olamide Zaccheaus, Kincaid, Sterling Shepard.
So it's Baker without Evans.
But it has Bucky. I mean, I don't actually hate that. It's a Baker
plus 3.
Baker plus 3 is not that bad here with Zaccheaus as a run back. You can do it, but you can do it. But I don't think you're wrong. You're still going to have to punt spots.
Yeah, I mean, that's the opportunity cost. For me, that's just not my preferred build at all. You have Goddard as well, who's cheap. I'd rather pay for the cheap Eagles or go get Saquon. I like Saquon a lot. Everyone does. He's going to be really popular, and I'm playing a lot of him.
How much?
I haven't finished, but probably about 50-ish%.
Okay.
A little more.
That's a lot. I
don't
actually, I have 36% right now. I don't think it's crazy. Kincaid's my highest exposed tight end, and Dalton Kincaid it's not like he's trustworthy. And then how about this? You'll appreciate this. Then I just have 3 other tight ends who I have between 35 and 38% of.
I have
Ertz, Goddard, and Kraft. The only one I think I'd rather have a little bit more of now that his price has come down is probably Cade Otton. I know that he's been banged up. Maybe Payne Durham gets more work than expected because Otton's been injured with a knee. And what did he miss? 2 straight games. Yeah, you know what? I might leave Cade Otton where he is.
I don't have much Cade Otton. Just he got squeezed with all the other tight end value, and so that's again, it's all a domino effect. I don't have a lot of AJ Brown because I'm over the field on Saquon, and that's kind of the opportunity cost within this game. I also don't have that much Jalen Hurts.
Do you have a lot of Kincaid?
Yeah.
The reason for that is because Allen's my most exposed quarterback.
He's not for me. I have double tight ends in a lot of lineups, so I just have a lot of tight end exposure.
Okay. So yeah, you're just naturally going to get to a ton of that.
Yeah, like I just have Kincaid and Goddard, Kraft and Ertz and like just these combinations around, and almost all of them. One of the tight ends is usually tied to my quarterback, but honestly, not always. So
I'll have you know that I have 180% of these tight end exposures. What does that tell you?
Yeah, you're with me on the tight end death train here.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. But really, you kind of have to. I'm not saying you have to, but if you when people don't, not specifically you guys, but I've never had a question asked more probably than like, hey, why is the Sims giving 2 tight ends a lot, this and that? Generally, you're always going to see that on slates that are devoid of good value, right? So you have to ask yourself, like, who projects as a better play? Let's say $4,300 Zach Ertz or $4,600 Gainwell, right? Or Jeremy McNichols at 4K or even Estime at 4,600. He's inactive, but you get my point, right? $4,700 Ray Davis. The low tier running backs are priced to a point where you're just going to naturally get filtered to these tight ends unless there's good value at wide receiver. But in a playoff slate, playoffs, how often are you going to get legitimately good value at wide receiver? It's just, there's not enough injuries. There's not enough people hurt. There's not, right?
And tight end is just a high variance position because they score touchdowns. So like one touchdown can do it. So yeah, I'm not surprised about that. We had a question about Jalen Hurts. Do you see limited running from him coming back from the concussion? I don't. He's also his running value is a little atypical. It's all touchdown equity for the most part. Like he's not as, I don't think of him as someone who's just 100-yard bonus. I think of him as he might score twice today.
You think so?
I mean, I don't think they're any less likely to do the tush push than they would be if none of this happened.
I meant you think so in that he doesn't have much equity in his legs outside of touchdowns. Because I think he does. I mean, maybe not Lamar Jackson, but you could.
I mean, he can move.
You could get
for
the
sure.
50, 60-yard game out of him running.
Oh, he definitely could do. I have him in the bucket with. We're getting to the point in the league where it's like the norm.
For sure.
Bo Nix can do that. Josh Allen can do that. Mahomes
that's a good point. So you're not playing him just because of that. It's the equity down near the goal line for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hell, even Baker once in a while can make that happen.
I had CJ again in tails. My first bet of the playoffs was CJ Stroud over rushing yards. I love the angle of attacking quarterbacks that don't run by choice in the playoffs.
But
he can run if he wants to.
He had some fantastic runs.
He just doesn't run.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I think after you run like 5+ yards as a quarterback, you shouldn't even be allowed to slide anymore.
Oh, you want to institute that rule? No slides?
Yeah. Okay. My brother-in-law mentioned it yesterday, and I said, you know what? Because how do you expect these guys coming in at full steam, shot out of a fucking cannon, to be able to stop and pull? I'm serious. Like, I'm not saying that Al-Shair was like a clean hit on Lawrence. What I am saying, though, is how many times have you seen it where it's like you get these garbage calls because these quarterbacks don't know how to slide? I mean, CJ Stroud's sliding technique was awful.
It was bad.
And if he gets himself hurt, that's not the defender. I'm sorry.
You can blame Kenny Pickett for all of this, your boy. So
for the fake outs.
Yeah, the fake slides.
He was so good at it.
Yeah. That's the one I don't like. Like if you're by the sidelines, you do the fake thing, you should lose your ability to get that. But
I'm just saying, it's not fair to the defense. It's not. Neither is anything anymore. Jacob Dunn with a super chat. Percentage of each defense you're using? I have no idea. I mean, I can look. Best under $4,500 receiver. To me, it's Olamide Zaccheaus. We've seen his workload
by default for me.
What's that?
By default, though. I don't even really like him. I just don't like anyone else.
I don't hate him, though.
I have a good amount. That's where I got funneled, and I have him slightly ahead of Wicks.
Also, if Jamison Crowder ends up sitting, then they become even thinner at wide receiver.
Yeah, De'Ami Brown is just there, though.
Yeah, but what about De'Ami Brown? I don't know. He's fine. Yeah, he's fine. He's cheap.
Defense, though, I honestly sprayed pretty wildly at defense. Eagles and Broncos probably at the top, but I think I have all 6 defenses in the pool.
Yeah, I have less Bills. I wish I had more, but I don't.
Like no Packers.
You know, the problem I have run into with Bill, this is the first time looking at the defenses, but I know this to be true. The reason I don't have a lot of Bills is you need to save every penny you can to build good lineups this week.
Yep. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you're banking on a touchdown, and that's very fluky. So it's not like I don't think the Bills are that much more likely to score than anyone else.
Mm-mm. I hear you. But yeah, back to Philly. Barkley looks great. I'm going to get to a lot of him. I have 40% right now. I have a decent amount of Jacobs too by default. Just the running back position is weak. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't love it. I don't like that's the one spot I'm a little uncomfortable with. I think I have 25% Josh Jacobs right now.
It's funny you say that. So I'm not sure how we managed to do this. I feel the same way, but the opposite. I
But you
don't
wish you
have a
had
lot of
more?
Josh. Yeah, I don't have a lot of Josh Jacobs, and I feel terrified.
So then how much, then what are you just getting to a ton of Irving and Barkley
and James
and
Cook.
Cook? Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So
Okay.
I basically rotated at tight end and running back. I kind of did the same thing. I did little pods of 2 of 3s or 2 of 4s for tight end. So like almost all my teams have 2 of Bucky, Saquon, James Cook. And
Okay.
do I have Josh Jacobs? A little, but I am worried just because I don't think he's going to have a lot of success in terms of equity per touch, but he legitimately is live for 30 touches. Like they've been easing him down the last couple games against New Orleans. He only played the first half. He's going to be back to 25 carries and some targets today. I don't know. He didn't pop up in a lot of the runs I did off the sims, and I didn't manually boost him, so I'm a little freaked out.
Are you not with me here on Devonta at his price point?
Yes, he's underpriced.
Okay. It's never the best feeling because he's like the number 3 on his own team, but he's finally at a price point where you can make a lot of sense of that. Right. And, you know, he's in the same conversation price wise as guys like Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs, Khalil Shakir, McMillan. Even Mims is only $600 cheaper than Devonta at this point.
Yeah, that's where it really just helps that, you're always after ceiling games, but there's just a lot of ways now you play him and he has a normal game and it's fine on a 3-game slate. And that really is appealing. Like he could have, 6 for 82 and you're not exactly looking for that, but that's fine.
I don't think you can go anywhere else with Philly. Like
No.
Grant Calcaterra, he's always going to get 1 or 2 targets or something like that. He is priced through the floor, but that doesn't feel good. He's not really cheap enough. And then there's really nobody else. I loved Jahan Dotson last week, but what's that?
I said you did. I played some of them because of you.
Yeah, he was great.
He was.
Because Jahan Dotson, when there's nobody else out there, is going to be fine. And by great, what did he have? He had 7 for 94, which was fine. I think he was minimum salary 3,500. But here, there's just, if you're going to Philly, you're going to the usual suspects. There's really nobody else.
Yeah, it's the playoffs. Like things are going to tighten up in
even in the regular season.
Yeah, they were that type of team to begin with. So I don't have much to say on them. And then on the other side, it's still, like I said, it's with the Packers. You take Christian Watson out and it does almost nothing because it's just like next man up, Malik Heath or Wicks or Jaden Reed may get a little more. I don't know what to do with that. I have some Jaden Reed, kind of just gut feel, to be honest, though.
Yeah, you're removing a horse from the carousel that has 100 other horses.
It doesn't do anything.
Matter of fact, my most exposed Green Bay player, it's not a receiver.
It's Tucker
Kraft.
Yes, same with me.
Because of the 2 tight ends, because of $3,700. So if your point is accurate, which I think by all means it is, wouldn't you rather just take the guy at 3,700?
Yeah, who's a red zone target? Absolutely. And that's kind of what I did. Like I said, I did have some Jaden Reed just because I do think they're going to get him the ball in space and give him a couple chances here. But I'm with you. I mean, Tucker Kraft, and I haven't put these out just yet, but Tucker Kraft is over 3-1 to score on FanDuel. I like that number. That's a number that I'm probably going to put on the card.
I like him too. I wonder if people are going to look at Jaden Reed and see what he did against Philly in on that Friday game in Brazil.
Brazil.
Yeah. Remember he had that massive game? it's just remarkable how little volume this guy sees week over week. If he goes nuts, he goes nuts. But at this point, you can't bank on any volume whatsoever. If Jayden Reed goes nuts, it's because he's doing it after the catch or in the backfield. You know, a 10 target game for Jayden Reed would be crazy. It would actually be, it would be something we haven't seen before, right? He
doesn't have that.
He has 6 or fewer targets in all but one game this year. 6 or fewer targets in all but one game. He played all 17 games. And the only game that he saw more than that was 8 targets against Minnesota, where they were playing from behind. Now, if your argument is that they play from behind and they have to abandon the run a little bit, well, there might be something there. But they played from behind against Minnesota all game in week 17. He had 4 targets. So I don't know how much credence you can really even give to that.
No, I think you have to be willing to, like I said, I have some Jayden Reed, but it's not for any reason other than I want to roll the dice on he's an explosive player. And I know he can do it, but you're drawing to limited volume. And I don't really see that changing. So gonna need something. I do think they'll play from behind, and I think he'll have more in the 6 to 8 than 1 to 3, I would hope, targets today. And the prices come down, but there's just no denying the way the Packers play is not conducive to a 15 target game.
Joshua said a 10 target game to Reed is probably a slate breaker, and it takes me out because guy plays about 40% of snaps or something. I'm not. You're right. If he had 10 targets, it's a slate breaker. But who in their right mind is? If it happens, it's not something we've seen. Like it's kind of unprecedented. It's uncharted waters. And he doesn't play 40% of snaps,
No,
but
he
he's
plays
not
more than that.
He's like a 60% guy. He's not a legitimate full-time player in that respect. The guy that's going to be on the field the most is Romeo Doubs and Tucker Kraft. Yeah.
Yep.
Sum this game up, put a bow on it before we talk about this third game, Sunday Night Football, and then turn it over to Live Before Lock with Matt Kajeski and Eric Lindquist.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this game is about Saquon, and then there's a lot of flyers. Pay down at tight end. Devontae Smith is a nice mid-range target. It's no surprises. This is not the game where I'm making stands. Jayden Reed would probably be my biggest, if you want to say stand, just because I'm over the field on him.
Okay. It's funny because where was this? Nick said you would need week 1 Jayden Reed to show up. Yes, but he had 5 touches in that game.
He had a rushing touchdown.
33-yard rushing touchdown. Yeah. He had 5 touches.
I hope he shows up, but yeah, I'm not.
Yeah.
Tough.
You need efficiency. The volume, I don't think, is going to be there regardless, unless they just do something wild. Anyway, let's go. Washington, Tampa Bay, really fun game. 51 point total here. A lot to get into. Before we do, Ben, guess what? We try and constantly offer opportunities for people to jump in over at Portfolio EV because, well, it works. If there's one thing that you and I have talked about a lot lately, it's that, look, DFS, like we have the best tools out there, right? The sims, the single lineup sim, all that stuff, at least we believe we do. And based on the screenshots in the Hall of Fame and the 3 or 4 milli winners that we have just this year in football using the tools, I would say they're good. But it's a volatile game that we play, right? Like you can easily have a bunch of bad weeks before you have the good week that makes up for it. Portfolio EV has made it so I just buoy all of those bad weeks with wins on OddsShopper. Now, not to say that there's never variance with betting. Of course, games go to overtime, crazy stuff happens. But like, yeah, that was December for me. It was me showing, I was through a tweet out saying like, listen, if you started there and you signed up and you hit a rough patch and you go back down early, stick with it because you're going to finish strong. You just have to stay with it. But imagine having like those type of profits, and I'm limited on most of these books. I know you are on a lot of them too. Those type of profits when you have a rough DFS month. That's like the one thing that I look at and I go, man, and then you have a big DFS win and then you're like,
oh yeah, open season.
You're doubly good. But it's been awesome. I bet everything from my phone. I haven't bet from my laptop or desktop in forever. I use the mass entry tool, get 100+ bets every day. Takes me 20 minutes. Top-down market-based approach. That's all it is. You're finding the true odds, using sharp sources on each market to calculate the true odds, figure out where there's discrepancies across these other sports books, many of them kind of like retail books, and hammering them. And even sharper books like FanDuel, that's been my best book over the past year. So people say like they're sharp, not saying they aren't, but they're also going to post bad lines when you're getting into these prop markets. It's been awesome, man.
And that's the thing. It's like, you want to know the best part. EV results are all in the tool. So you can, before you place your first bet, say, man, I'm not sure if I want to attack FanDuel. You go right to the EV results, and we have the back-tested data for every single prop market from FanDuel. And you can say, man, over the last 2,000 bets, this market has been great. This market has been not great. I'm going to omit that from my portfolio. It's that simple. You literally just sort by that book. So you mentioned it. We are running a flash sale. This is just for a wild card weekend. Use the code EV59. And you're getting a full month. And the reason we wanted to do this, we want to give people some runway. We don't want you to get it for 24 hours and then you say, oh, that was cool, but I'm not sure what I just did because it was one day. You get a full month to utilize these tools. You're able to do that. You get in, you get acclimated, you join the Discord. And then like you said, and I can speak firsthand to this, I played the 2-game slate. I played the 6-game slate. I played the 3-game slate. I'm playing more DFS slates just because I have a few extra bullets. I'm throwing them into the Millie Maker, just a little extra, and it's from steady gains on the betting side because of Portfolio EV. So if you want to check it out, the link is there. Jordan threw it in chat, and I mean, just read chat. We got a lot of people in there saying it works. $150 to 1,100 in 5 weeks. It can really work. It's really powerful stuff. Come check it out with us.
Yeah, man. Hey, links in the description. All you do, click that when you want to check out, or when you check out for the month. Like Ben said, it's a full month. Big discount too. That's a huge discount. 60%.
That's why we're only running it for.
Again, yeah, I know.
We keep
EV59. Use that at checkout. You're in. Join the Discord as well if you have questions. My DMs are always open. I'm sure plenty of you guys have DM'd me that are watching this. I answer any questions you guys have. I'm happy to. Sometimes I get it at like during a show. You may have to wait, but you get the point. Anyway, let's wrap this one up with Washington and Tampa. And all the DFS tools, by the way, if you ever wanted to sign up with any of our sportsbook partners, follow those 4 simple steps in that link, get a free month. And if you're somebody that signs up at Portfolio EV, you need to be on as many sportsbooks as possible. Double dip, my friends. Use this link so that if you signed up on 4 of these sportsbooks or pickup sites, you're getting 4 free months of our core package, which is $100 value and includes sims and includes a single lineup sim. And now you have all your books that you need to utilize the Portfolio EV tool. There's one. Now you're thinking. In all seriousness, why would you not?
Again, it's a lot of great value, and we're trying to provide it. Best of both worlds for everyone.
I'm coming around more on Jaden Daniels and like the Terry McLaurin plays today because, and Zacchaeus being so cheap. There's a part of me that just feels like, and I like Tampa to win this game for what it's worth, but Jaden Daniels has kind of proven me wrong week over week. And I think I may be at a point now, watch, he'll just be terrible. But I'm at a point now where I don't want to be told. I'm with the field on Jaden Daniels right now. And I feel okay about that because McLaurin just still has the 2 touchdown upside. Tampa is allowing 60 rushing yards per game over the second half or the last 8 weeks of the season. There's still a pass funnel defense. So I think the ways to pair Daniels with Ertz or Zacchaeus and McLaurin actually, and I think McLaurin might be a little overpriced because his touchdown production is unsustainable. I'm coming around on this a little bit, man.
It's funny. So am I. And I don't want to, I bet Tampa. I'm not the biggest Jaden Daniels fan, but none of that is overly relevant to what I think he can do here for my lineups. It's a healthy team total. I think he's one of the bigger candidates to just running wild today in terms of rushing production for quarterbacks. He's got a home run hitter in McLaurin. He's got cheap paydowns. He's got Zach Ertz at the tight end spot. He has a running game that I have no idea what to do with. I guess Eckler's kind of in the McLaughlin bucket, I guess you could say, but I'm getting to some Daniels and I feel good about it just because of the way the slate fell. I still think Tampa handles them, but I don't think that means he has a bad DFS day.
You think they handle him, huh?
I do. Yeah, I'm I think Bucky just straight guts him on the ground. Washington's defense, it's almost 5 yards allowed per carry. I don't see that ending well.
If there was a team right now that, if you were to bet a team a long shot to make the Super Bowl, it's always going to be the Bucks for me. You know why? Because this is the type of team that could just lose in this game. And I'd go, well, makes sense, right? Like they just lost an important game to Dallas a few weeks ago. They're also the type of team that, who can they compete with? They beat the Lions this year. The Eagles were shorthanded, but they crushed the Eagles. They demolished the Eagles last year in the postseason. Todd Bowles has Jalen Hurts' number for sure. It's just, they're uniquely positioned to just get him back, like to lose in the opening week or actually be able to compete against all of the best teams in the division. Do you see what I'm saying, right? That's the type of team they are.
I mean, they have the best path. There's no doubt about that. So I'll give them that.
Man, you're a hater.
I think the Texans.
Oh, come on. The Texans.
No, don't get me started on the Texans.
You think the Texans have a shot against Kansas City, assuming the Bills win this week?
I think Kansas City's biggest hurdle is should they rest their players again, and just wait to play them against Baltimore or Buffalo, because you don't get a better spot than that. I really don't see Houston doing much of anything, sadly.
That'd be tough.
That'd be tough. No, listen, the Bucks have a good road and they're an explosive team. Bucky is my single highest owned player. He's going to be the most popular player on the slate. I like the Bucks. I'm not getting to a lot of Mike Evans just because he's super expensive. Are you?
Bucky?
No, Evans.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, because I was going to say Bucky's my highest owned player on the entire slate.
Same with me.
Evans, I got 20%, but I don't have as much Evans as I typically. You know why? It's because Bucky's 7K, which I think is an underpricing. I have a lot of Barkley as well. I have a good amount of James Cook. And then these expensive guys, like I have 28% AJ Brown. I have got 20% Evans. I have 20% Terry McLaurin. So, and I know they're not all the same price, but I'm just getting kind of all of those guys. So Mike Evans is not standing out to me. Also, he doesn't have any incentives this week, which makes me like him less.
Well, I'm surprised he's even playing. I mean, what the hell's the point of playing? Eckler, sneaky or stupid? My friend, I don't know. I tend to think stupid, but man, I get it. You could attach him and maybe they fall behind and he just starts to rack up easy targets.
I don't think it's that stupid.
Range of outcomes is just gigantic. And honestly, to tie it back, I'm going to bump up McLaughlin ahead of him with this news.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't, but I can see it. Because you don't really think they're going to use McNichols, right? I mean, I would assume that it's just a two-man backfield here in Washington.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But even with that, I'm not sure. It's one of those things. If you tell me I have to play a sub 5K back, of course he's in the conversation, but do you?
Right. I don't think you need to. No. I don't think you need to. But I do think that he's probably going to have more. He played 60% of snaps last week coming off the IR. I think you can make a pretty decent argument that Austin Eckler, if you're looking for value there, is a decent play. It's just a matter. Here, let me put it to you this way. I would rather Austin Eckler in 3 running back lineups than I would in 2 running back lineups. What I mean is I'd rather Austin Eckler replace my $4,200 tight end than replace James Cook or Saquon Barkley or Bucky Irving.
I agree with that. Yeah, the opportunity cost for him to take one of the two is probably too great.
I don't love Brian Robinson. That's what I would say. I like Eckler more than I like Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing because now my mind doesn't work properly. I'm like, well, Javante's right there. Like, yeah, I'm sticking with my plan. I have a plan, and I'm sticking to it with paying
All
up.
right. All right. That's fair. I don't know if I have a plan yet, if we're being honest. I do like Olamide Zaccheaus. I like Ertz. That's why I keep coming back to some of this Jaden Daniels, because he's actually, Jaden Daniels isn't cheap, but he's kind of in the same bucket as Josh Allen, right? Where you've got, well, not entirely because McLaurin is up there, but he's not that expensive. And then you've got a $4,300 Zach Ertz, $4,400 Olamide Zaccheaus. I think you could even pair Austin Eckler with Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, I'd be more prone to do that because I see almost no way that he doesn't get there through passing volume.
I like McMillan on the other side. Like, the guy can't score a touchdown every game forever. At this point, it's just getting out of control, you know?
He's on the Westbrook Akina diet. He scores every game. I had him last week, anytime touchdown, and sure enough, right in the end zone.
He has 7 in his last 5. But also, if you look at his reception rate, like, he's 5 of 6, 5 of 5, 5 of 7, 5 of 6, 4 of 7. He's catching everything thrown to him right now. I don't know how long it lasts, but at 5,200, he's fine. I think I like him more in Baker stacks. I think we talked about everything. The only thing that I'll reiterate here from earlier in the show, if people didn't join in till later, is Cade Otton's kind of the odd man out for me this week.
Me too. Had a couple people ask me about Sterling Shepard. I'm not really doing it. If you are in the most extreme jam of all time and you need a cheapie, like a literal, like, actual min, I get it, but I will actively try to avoid that as much as possible.
This would be, I have 15%. And
He's in my pool. I just don't like it.
My guess is Sterling Shepard for me is largely used in Baker +3 stacks.
The only reason you're doing that is you're saying I have a combination elsewhere that I can't get to without this guy, and I'll just sacrifice. And exactly. I get that, but I'm trying not to do that.
I don't think it's insane, only because he is technically the wide receiver 3. Like, he's going, at the very least, you can expect Sterling Shepard to be on the field.
I just worry now, even with Ott, it just gets even worse for him, though. Where is that volume coming from?
It's possible. But yeah. Look, this isn't me dying on the Sterling Shepard hill. I'm just saying he's cheap. Hey, there we go. 1 hour up, 1 hour down. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us as always. If you don't mind, tap that thumbs up before you go. Only 344. We could have done better. We forgot to mention it.
I know it's playoff time. Everyone's a little off. We'll get it going. And like I said, you still have plenty of time to do that, because don't go anywhere. Leading up to lock, they're going to talk about, and I'm going to be listening because I need to know what do we do with the Denver running backs? Is Tyler Batty actually going to play a lot? These are the kind of questions we need to answer before lock, and we've got you covered right here.
Damn right, fella. Anyway, follow Ben at JazzRazBets, me @Lafayette_D. Shout out to Jordan for producing. And we'll close it with Anthony, a member super chat. Thanks, man. Not getting cute today. Playoffs equals stud plus targets. Yeah, but here's the problem, Anthony. You actually have a certain amount of salary that's allocated to you. You can't just go $100,000 salary, play all this. You're going to have to not get cute. You're going to have to get cheaper somewhere. And that'll very likely to, be the crux of the entire slate. Appreciate you guys. Stick around. Matt and Eric coming up next. Don't go anywhere. Ben and I'll see you back here tomorrow. We'll live before action for Monday Night Football, Millie Maker style. Peace.
Leave me alone. You're such a joke. It's like Christmas in here again. When did this happen? Well, it's not my fault. It's what it is. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to NFL Live Before Lock here, presented by Stokastic. We are on the Stokastic YouTube channel, so that makes sense. I'm Eric Lindquist. You can follow me at Eric Lindquist over on X. And I'm joined, as I always am, every single Sunday, especially these wild card weekends, these playoffs coming down the line, divisional round, conference championship round, Super Bowl time. It's Matt_Gajeski over on X. How you doing, my dude?
Doing good, man. How are you? Are you excited for the game today?
I'm excited for the game tomorrow. I will be in attendance, so I'm excited to head to Arizona for that.
You're staying the night?
Yeah, staying with the folks. So they're out there in old Scottsdale. So we're gonna go to the football game. It's so weird that I got to leave home to go to a football game that was supposed to be here. Now it's over there, and it is what it is. We're just gonna make it all work. But I'm excited for Monday night for sure. But we got 3 games on the docket for today. We got a 3-game slate. I had to update a lot of my 6-game slate lineups because of this running back news. Audric Estime going to be out, inactive here for the Denver Broncos. Didn't see that one coming. I don't know what to make of consolidated running back touches here because we just never really seen it here with Sean Payton, but it's so frustrating to have to go through all of those. Did you do anything on the 6-game slate, Matt?
I played one lineup. I am not at home right now.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of one of those weird spots where, did you use up your running back in those spots?
I actually don't remember. I'm trying to look at it right now. I don't remember who I played.
Okay. Well, either way, I'm updating everything on that side of things here for it, but 53 minutes to go. We're going to break all the ins and outs down of this 3-gamer, and I will say this too, Matt. A lot of people in my DMs, my mentions, even Matt Bellman today goes on X, throws out that you and I are feuding after last week. Are we actually feuding? Is that a thing that's going on? I don't feel like we're feuding.
No, we're not feuding. And I didn't play any running backs, but I did already use 2 tight ends that both played and did not so great. Luckily, I ended up with the Texans D somehow. So I don't think we're dead in the main slate for a 6-gamer, but we're definitely not winning.
I feel like the winner is going to have Ladd with Texans defense. Let me tell you, I didn't do that on a 6-game slate.
Well, I played Will Dissly and Likely in my one lineup. So yeah, it's not looking great.
Yeah, times are tough. Tight end was a disaster yesterday. Mark Andrews, thanks for coming. Have a nice day. I had some really good underdog. I did all of those $3 ones because I saw it was going to overlay. And so I just jammed that in the last hour. Mark Andrews, thanks for coming. Really appreciate your service. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, anytime you can jam 2 bad tight ends, you have to do it. And that's exactly what I did.
Isn't Mark Andrews #1 PFF graded tight end this year?
He had a great latter half of the year, but he plays tight end. Sometimes you're just going to walk into bad games. It's not like Likely or Dissly had good games either. But the nature of the wide receiver position and how expensive the cheap guys should be leads you to more 2 tight end stuff. I'm getting a lot of it today still. A little weary after what happened yesterday, but you don't have a lot of options unless you're going to play Sterling Shepard.
Nah, and that leads us into the quarterback position here, unless you're going to play Sterling Shepard. Yeah, that or a couple of dusty running backs, which kind of sucks on a slate that has, Bucky Irving, who is God, Saquon Barkley, who is eternal God. It's just insane what we're looking at. But at the quarterback position, I think we could just start this off right from the get-go because kind of intertwining who our favorite quarterbacks are going to be is going to intertwine with some of our favorite stacks, so on and so forth. For me, it's Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels up top here, and I am far more in the Jaden Daniels corner. First off, Josh Allen does lock early, so obviously there's a tiny bit of bias that I have where, hey, I can continue to swap my lineups, but if Josh Allen puts up 35, I'm pretty sure you would take 35 with Josh Allen and just wish you had jammed him eternally. We have him as the highest projected quarterback here today, but I got to throw a couple of things out there. 1, it's still difficult to pick out his stack partners. 2, Denver's defense, I think, is not getting enough credit, and this line has been very, very wide all week, and I am very much in the camp that plus 400 was not a good number on the money line there on the Denver Broncos. Ended up getting a little bit of closing line value, which is good for absolutely nothing when you're still an 8.5-point dog, but how do you feel about Josh Allen versus Jaden Daniels versus Jalen Hurts, who's also up there on the expensive range?
If salary was not a constraint, you would want to play all of these guys, but I think we immediately need to start with the roster construction standpoint. because salary is tight. And I think there's a lot of separation at running back once you get below Saquon Barkley and Bucky Irving. Once you pencil those two expensive running backs into your lineups, and you probably don't want to punt off receiver tight end entirely, you start running out of salary. So when I'm going through each position and trying to prioritize, it's definitely getting the two stud running backs, which brings me down a little bit on the elite quarterbacks. There's only 6 of them to choose from, so it's not like I'm playing 0. But my highest owned quarterback is actually going to be Baker Mayfield. We're not talking about the cheap guys yet, but to parse through the expensive quarterbacks, I still do have a slight lean towards Josh Allen with the separation he shows between Daniels and him. And I don't necessarily think you need to stack him. You're probably just going to run into some of it naturally being a 3-game slate, but it's absolutely not necessary. And I actually kind of, if you're playing like the large tournaments today, I kind of like throwing out Josh Allen stacks with Keon Coleman and Amari Cooper just because there's a lot of funneling to Khalil Shakir, which I'm not sure is 100% warranted on this slate. So all things considered, when I am playing the expensive quarterbacks, it is a slight preference to Josh Allen. It is slight. Jaden Daniels would be second for me. He's a little bit cleaner with the Terry McLaurin and Zach Ertz stacking partners. And Hurts is very clearly third, even though there's a massive implied team total on the Eagles. Hurts runs into more problems with Saquon Barkley vulturing some touchdowns there. The projection between those two guys swings so wildly depending on who scores the touchdowns. It's enough for me to prefer the Daniels and the Allen. Not to mention, Daniels has probably the best matchup of the 3 through the air against that terrible Tampa Bay secondary.
That's kind of what I'm looking at. Plus, pretty consolidated. I'm not going to take any deep shots on any other Washington piece like a Diami Brown. I'm not going to play really a Jamison Crowder, who has, seen some random spike weeks at times. It's basically going to be Terry McLaurin, Olympus Zaccheaus, and Zach Ertz. I feel pretty comfortable with those 3. And when you look at their prices, $6,500 for Terry McLaurin, $4,400 for Zaccheaus, $4,300 for Zach Ertz, actually your most expensive tight end on today's slate. Still, $4,300, pretty cheap relative to all things considered. So I'm with you. I think best matchup, I definitely agree with as well. So I'm on board with what you said there as well. But Jaden Daniels for me is going to be kind of the primary go-to guy on the expensive end. Are you around the field, maybe a little bit underweight on Josh Allen? Because again, this is the one that I'm having a tough time with at 8,200. You brought up Khalil Shakir pulling so much ownership on today's slate. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up even a little bit more popular. We kind of saw that yesterday with Ladd McConkey on a 2-game slate where it was just like, oh my God, that is so much ownership coming in on him, as it was warranted for sure. But I mean, how do you feel about Josh Allen, Khalil Shakir specifically?
I don't like the pairing. Most of my Josh Allen, I'm playing the larger field stuff today.
Same.
So I'm trying to find some sort of avenue to getting rid of some ownership, because as you guys can tell, I'm going to be leaning pretty heavily into the running back chalk. And I think to do that, you can start playing some of these lower owned Buffalo receivers, Keon Coleman, Amari Cooper. If you really want to get deep, you could throw like some Curtis Samuel into your life too, or Mac Hollins. I'm not sure I'm going to get all the way down there, but absolutely using Amari and Keon Coleman at the expense of Khalil Shakir makes some sense to me in the larger field stuff. It's not like there's that much separation in the roles where we should be seeing, in my opinion, this wide of an ownership gap. So that's primarily how I'm using Allen. And when you start using Buffalo stacks specifically, I think it helps with the Allen price. He, in a vacuum at 8,200, the most expensive QB on the slate, is hard to get to. When you start using Amari and Keon and Kincaid and the tight ends, that's where the Buffalo stack gets to be a little more manageable and how I ended up there. But yeah, when you use Allen and Shakir together, I think you need to be careful.
You need to be very careful. I think that's the overall perspective that I feel about Josh Allen stacks today. He's written up as everybody's go-to guy. I know he was the go-to cash game quarterback on a 6-game slate, him or Sam Darnold. And it's like, man, I feel pretty awful clicking on those buttons. But yeah, Josh Allen, I'm going to be below on. If Josh Allen goes nuts, I am super screwed. Super screwed. You know what? I'm also super screwed.
At?
Where? What?
Percent-wise, where are you at on him?
0.
Oh, out of how many lineups?
150.
Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. We talk about this a lot. That's a risk management thing. If you've been watching Live Before Lock for any length of time, you know that I play slates a little more cowardly than Eric, who takes sometimes more drastic stands, but when those hit, they pay off. When they don't, you get buried.
So it's hilarious. This is very reminiscent. Almost exactly a year ago, you and I did a show before I drove to Arizona. That Sunday night, it was a Suns Kings game where the Suns ended up coming back from 40 back. It was a really fun time. But the point of the story is, I had a big stand on this exact same show where it was a full Dak Prescott fade going up against Green Bay, where I was convinced that Green Bay was going to beat them. You know what? They did. But you pretty much needed Dak Prescott plus CD Lamb and then the run back of Romeo Doubs, or you were toast. And so I don't try to make these kind of things happen. I'm not trying to hype anything up. I'm not trying to be like the take ladder or anything, but we're talking about an $8,200 quarterback with a very spread out target share. And I think if you get away from some of the rushing touchdowns, the nuclear ceiling game where, he has 2-3 of those, I'm probably going to take the Baker Mayfield Bo Nix side of things so much more. Now, Jordan Love, if he goes off, I'm going to feel terrible. He's 5% owned. I'd say he's a little bit under owned, but still at the same time, I don't think he's got the same kind of upside that we get with Nix and Mayfield. So let's talk about these two cheapies that I do like, and I have in way more lineups than I do Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, and then obviously the full Josh Allen fade, which again, it's not trying to be hot takey. It's simply math and me putting into the Sims based on what I think for a projection and ownership. Because if he comes in over a quarter owned, if he comes in 30% owned, I'm going to feel correct about the play no matter what. And I think that's what happens in like a mini max setting in the $3, in the $25 large field. So, and that's what I'm playing today. So I'm looking at more of the Baker Mayfield side, completely with you. Love getting to a little bit of Sterling Shepard. I might be a little bit different than you there. I think 3,300 for him coming back into the mix, I think is at least got some major utility on a slate like this. We also have two guys at a running back position that I'm going to be way, way, way overweight on, looking at you, Austin Eckler, and Mr. Jaleel McLaughlin. But Baker Mayfield, he said he's your highest owned quarterback. He's my highest owned quarterback too. Tell the people why.
The first thing is pricing.
Yep.
I think it is easier to get to this stack. You can make the Allen stuff work if you're willing to like double stack him with Coleman and Kincaid or something. But with Baker at the 6,800, the stacks are a little bit easier. You can still get a stud receiver in Mike Evans. He allows you to play both of the elite running backs. Tight end, no one's expensive, so that doesn't really matter a ton. But if you wanted to play K-Dot and he's not expensive, the stacks come together really well, and that's before you even consider game environment stuff. He's playing Washington. Yeah, they have Marshawn Lattimore back. He's one player that's not going to fix a defense, which has been leaky at times. The best path to beating this team, I still think, is through the air with Mayfield. He's been wildly efficient, having a career year himself. And then you just look at the total, which backs up everything that we're talking about here. It's over 50 points. Best total on the slate. I think it's something we lean into because ownership is not coming along with it. Mayfield, I think, at best will be the third most owned quarterback. And I think it's kind of a coin flip who's going to be more owned between him and Hurts.
Yeah, we're going to find out real quickly with Josh Allen how much ownership there is at quarterback left to go around. That's the other part of this entire equation for me, where I feel like I can kind of play the chess pieces later on. Like if Denver Buffalo were the last game of the slate, I don't think I would have 0 of 150 Josh Allen. If that makes sense to people, I hope that makes a little bit of sense. I just feel like I can play the late swap game better on slates like this, like Thanksgiving Day, just like this one. I just enjoy the idea of being able to kind of figure out exactly who I'm going to want as the slate progresses. Now, I'm not recommending everybody do what I'm doing here today. It's more of an aggressive stance, being risk tolerant, things of that nature. But I love Baker Mayfield today. I love Kate Otten too, who has a Q tag next to his name. And I think that honestly is going to actually do something. Kate Otten was like, I don't know, how expensive was he earlier this season? 5,500, like at his high point?
Yeah, around there. He was way more expensive than I ever thought he'd be. This is literally just an injury discount.
Yep. And Payne Durham has been serviceable. Like he's been serviceable while he's out there, but I think it's in 3 weeks that he's played in his stead. He's played a grand total of 65? 12 total targets. 12 total targets, 11 catches. So he's been pretty insanely efficient. I guess that was 9 catches during that duration, 11 total catches on the entire season for Payne Durham. But Kate Otten at 4,100, going to be a big stand for me as well. Like Zach Ertz, obviously in that game environment as well. Looking at Elidima Zacchaeus, Terry McLaurin. Like Washington Tampa is really the game that I want to have go completely nuclear. And then mixing in a little bit of my guy Bo Nix, where we've seen some rushing equity for him. We've seen him be very competent with his legs, be somebody who's been deadly accurate the entire season, only 12 picks, 29 touchdowns, and has really come on strong here of late. Finished out the season at LA, at Cincy, and then Kansas City. They got the gimme by playing the entire second teamer. So there's less to draw from that, but we're talking completion percentage records at Oregon, and he's carried that over into the NFL in a very efficient Sean Payton offense. How do you feel about him going against Buffalo, who, if you made me pick the weak point of that entire football team, wouldn't you pick their secondary?
I would pick their secondary, but using the context clues you have available to you, Bo Nix is still pretty hard to get to, in my opinion. Let's just start top down.
Mm-hmm.
The Packers and the Broncos have the lowest team totals in the slate by a mile, not even close. So you start projecting touchdowns, yardage, all that goes into the quarterback position. It's going to be much lower than everyone else. Bo Nix is 6,300. You're paying $500 less for him compared to Baker Mayfield, who has a much better projection. Ownership. When you look at between him, Hurts, and Mayfield, the like slight tier above him, it's 7% difference, 8% difference projected. And then when you play Bo Nix too, you kind of have to ask yourself, like, how is he getting there? Am I playing him naked based on his rushing ability? He's extremely hard to stack. You basically have Sutton, and I guess you can use Mims because the targets per route is just really high for him at this point. It kind of makes up for his lack of routes. So Nix is just kind of tricky. I kind of think for him to win a tournament, he needs to rush for like 100 yards at this point. And I don't really see that being in his range of outcomes. So he's hard for me to get to, with the projection being wide between him and the other guys and the ownership not being wide.
Yeah, I have 16% of him, so I'm probably going to just kind of hold pat with that. I'm jamming Baker Mayfield, playing a little bit, a minute amount of Jalen Hurts, and then Jaden Daniels, my other stand, but I'm going to be right around the field on him. So it's there's a lot of ownership to go around to other quarterbacks when you have 0 of one of the main guys and 0 of the
true.
guy pulling no ownership, basically. So it'll be no Jordan Love, no Josh Allen. Just give me the other 4, and hopefully something comes out nicely in the wash.
That was what I was going to ask you. It's like, so with Nix, at least he has a path. What is Love's path?
Half of the Philadelphia secondary is deathly ill on the field from something they ate pregame. Like that's it. That's the only path. Like the secondary is too good. Philadelphia in general is, I think that game ends up being really disgusting if we're being honest. Like it would take Jordan Love playing way outside of what we've seen from him this season. Honestly, the path to Jordan Love would be him getting sick pregame and you were able to play Malik Willis. Like that's the path to being optimal with Green Bay.
I'm not going that far, but
I'm being sarcastic.
I mean, yeah, it's a little bit of hyperbole, but you're just going to need something so wide out of Green Bay's typical game plan. All they want to do is run the ball. And it's led to them being actually pretty one-dimensional. When they do throw, it gets even trickier without Watson now. You lose a part of your game that you can't really replicate. I don't see anyone that can lift the top off a defense consistently. Like maybe Jaden Reed could do that, but for whatever reason, they just refuse to use him in any sort of role other than this little gadget underneath type stuff. So it's just like hard when they don't want to throw. Love won't run, even though he's pretty athletic. Like he just won't. He's incredible at extending the pocket and not taking sacks, but then he just throws the ball away or has a turnover or something weird anytime those situations arise. And he's not that much cheaper than Baker Mayfield either. We were talking 5,800. You do have to sink some salary into him. So he's tough for me to get to as well. Both Love and Nix are a little tricky. I'd much rather find the salary to play Mayfield than either of them. I plan on coming in under 5%. I'm going to be running 150, so it's not like I'll have 0, but just going to be carefully crafting those lineups where like you need something very different than the projected game flow for both of these teams, in my opinion, for these quarterbacks at their ceilings.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts, it always makes sense because the tush push, because A.J. Brown, because Devonta Smith. Like, there's worlds where I can still Jalen Hurts, 7,300, be okay with clicking on it a little bit. The Jordan Love one is pretty tough. Yeah, as you said, Jaden Reed, I mean, honestly, the path is probably just 2 explosive breakdowns in coverage. That happens at the NFL level even every so often. Jordan Love there, just hits 2 bombs to Jaden Reed, and that's kind of all she wrote. but I just don't really see it there. So I'm
Yeah,
definitely going to be under.
It's hard when
we're on the same page.
Yeah, for a Packers like backer, you can poke holes like, why isn't Jaden Reed on the field more? I would poke that hole, and it's like, why does he only have 5 targets? It's like, they only throw the ball 22 times if the game goes their way. Like his target share is not terrible, but it's like there's just not a lot of passes to go around. And
Yeah,
he's
LaFleur's out there
inconsistent.
running the football in the third quarter of a game. They're down 3 scores to the Vikings. Like, what are we actually doing, LaFleur? Like, what are we actually doing?
That one was bad.
That was extremely bad. That's about as bad at coaching as you'll see at the NFL level. And I love Matt LaFleur as a coach. Like, I think he's actually a really good coach. And people are saying, Eric, that's just your Vikings bias speaking. No. I jammed the Packers against the Cowboys last year. I'm more than happy to accept that the Green Bay Packers have a really good young core. They are very talented, but talent also needs to have a path. And against this Philadelphia secondary, I don't see it. So it's going to take something fluky to happen, slip on the field, couple deep bombs. That can definitely happen, but I'm going to go towards the Baker Mayfield range every single time. The Baker Mayfield play, I feel so much more secure. I mean, just week in, week out, every single time. Has there been a more consistent quarterback in the NFL than Baker Mayfield this season?
Lamar?
Oh, Lamar's been insane. Yeah, that's probably it too.
But I mean, if he's in the Lamar conversation, that tells you how good he's been.
Yeah, and before people come at me about Josh Allen, if you watch the New England game, you know what I'm talking about. New England,
Lamar had a bad game against the Steelers too.
Oh, he definitely did. That 18-16 disgusting slodge fest. Yeah, I was pretty tilted by that in a year-long fantasy deal, but that is neither here nor there. You know what is here, Matt? This amazing sale that we have here on the top of our screen, EV59 Portfolio EV. What is that, you might ask? Well, oddshopper.com, friends. If you have followed Greg Ehrenberg, G. Ehrenberg DFS, my co-host over on the NBA Live Before Lock show here on this very same channel, Monday through Friday, well, you've probably seen his thread that he's put together where he's almost 5x'd his bankroll. There's been a little fluctuation. It always does. Variance is a thing. Anybody who bets, who only posts their wins, is not being real with you. There are fluctuations. You're going to run into stretches where things don't go well. Like, I don't know, people who bet a Denver plus 400 ticket and brag about CLV like me over on X. Follow me at Eric Lindquist. But $40.95 right now for Portfolio EV for an entire month. That is just over $1 a day. We're talking just over $1 a day in order to have multiple curated bets, market-based analysis from every single sports book, and it's showing growth over time. We are tracking all of the results in real time for you over in the Portfolio Results tab over at OddsShopper. And anybody who's followed Greg's threads knows that there is definitely that fluctuation, but over any long-term sample size, it has been outperforming the S&P. We have been doing an unbelievable job over at OddsShopper, and you have an opportunity to curate those tools right now for yourself, no matter what state you're in. Even in California, where you're utilizing Fliff, Rebet, other sweepstakes books of that sort. Whether you're in New York, where you have access to everything across the board, in Arizona, which will be very, very lovely here in about an hour. But I'm telling you, OddsShopper, amazing products that they're continuing to churn out. Our dev team does an unbelievable job, but it's because of this consistency. It's because of this forward-facing deal where we have the results tracked for you. We are constantly updating it in real time next to the bets, and you can utilize Portfolio EV to put together the best sample of every single bet at every single sports book that you have available in your estate. And that is available to you right now with promo code EV59 for just over $1 a day for an entire month. So check it out. Would love to see you guys there. Let's continue on to the running back position, shall we? Again, I can't say enough good things about Portfolio EV. Love that we have the most forward-facing stuff possible in the betting space. It is incredible every single time I look at it. To the running back position, Saquon Barkley, 8,500. He's an expensive meatball. Josh Jacobs, Bucky Irving, James Cook. We have some studs, some absolute dudes at the running back position. Saquon's 8,500, though, and pulling 36.5% ownership. That pales in comparison to Bucky Irving, who is the chalk of all chalk, based on what we just saw in that last week with the Rachaad White usage just dissipating, the snaps just dissipating because of those fumble issues. But let's start with the expensive guy, Saquon Barkley. 36% more for Joaquin Phoenix or less? Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a very short breakdown for me. I'm absolutely smashing Bucky Irving and Saquon Barkley. Whatever the ownership number you're going to throw out, it's going to be higher on both of them. I'm going to be like above 70% on Bucky, above 50% on Saquon. And I think it just becomes a conversation of who are you sprinkling in the rest of the lineups. So I think these are the two best plays on the entire slate. First two guys in my lineup. And I don't think they're owned enough.
Eric is so funny. Eric Wild AF, LOL, LMAO. You know what? I appreciate you all. I have my moments, but no, Matt Gajewski has his moments too. And this one of them, I completely agree with you. I don't see how you get away from the usage of a Saquon Barkley in a playoff game, a usage of Bucky Irving in must-win games that we saw. We basically got to see the entire template for Tampa Bay. They had must-win game followed by must-win game. And now this is another must-win game. And Bucky Irving's just going to get all of the usage and all the land. I'm getting different, obviously, at quarterback. We all understand that. I'm going to be getting very different at wide receiver. I don't need to get different at running back. I want to play Saquon. I want to play Bucky. But there is one running back on the cheap end that I really do like. And it's Jaleel McLaughlin, who I don't think I was going to probably play any of before we got Audric Esteem ruled out. I think he ends up being the guy that Sean Payton relies on more. I think it just seems as though Sean Payton has it out for Javonte Williams to some extent. Like, they don't get along. They don't see eye to eye. Maybe Javonte Williams does suck, but the guy had his entire knee shattered after, starting off pretty studly his rookie season. He was an absolute wagon at North Carolina. Love everything about it. I got to think that this is Jaleel McLaughlin, right?
I tentatively lean that way, but it ebbs and flows so much where I don't feel confident at all. We've seen games where Javonte plays the majority of snaps. McLaughlin, it yo-yos. Estimate's out, but they came out pre-game, and there was a report that Tyler Bidet would be a focal point of the game plan. Now, I almost discount that right away. Anytime Sean Payton says something like that, it's usually just a direct lie. Like, I can't even remember the last time he told the truth with something like that. So now my baseline assumption is like, all right, Bidet, he's going to be a focal point. All right, 2 snaps. But yeah, I mean, that's at least in the back of my mind now. Could he actually be the guy? I truly do not have the answer, and I don't know. Which is why I'd rather just play Saquon and really anyone above this range, and why I ended up with more Baker. You're just not eating risk when you're playing Bucky and Saquon. And if you're using 3 running back builds, I still would rather throw the darts on Jacobs, James Cook, maybe Eckler even. With Jacobs, it's just they're going to get, according to the spread, they're going to be down in this game throwing. That's not really conducive to him. Cook is going to have to split with Ty Johnson and Ray Davis, so he's not as clean. But I still think it's cleaner than Denver. And honestly, I would rather take a shot on Eckler in a 2-man backfield versus McLaughlin in what could be a 3-man.
Yeah, a Batty, Bidet.
He says Bidet. I don't know.
Bidet,
I've been saying.
It's good. Did you get that reference? You got a reference. You got a pop culture reference.
Bidet?
No, I mean, no, never mind.
Anyway, you like Eckler, I think. You were mentioning him earlier in passing.
Yeah, I like Austin Eckler. So again, people are saying you want to get different. You can play up to 3 running backs. It is what it is. But Austin Eckler, man, going up against Tampa, I mean, Austin Eckler, if they're trailing, this could just be dump off. It gives Jaden Daniels a little bit of a safety valve that he hasn't had. Jeremy McNichols ain't it. I can tell you that much. Brian Robinson Jr., not known for his pass catching. I think he's better than most people expect him to be, but Austin Eckler, that's what he does. I mean, Austin Eckler is Mighty Mouse out there doing his thing, and 4,800 for him. I liked that coming into today. Some of that got trimmed over to McLaughlin, but I do think running back is probably the easiest one because you get Barkley, you get Bucky. I am way under on James Cook. I'm way under on Josh Jacobs. I don't really feel good about those guys on the expensive end. Are you with me as far as Jacobs and Cook? Because they're pulling way more ownership than I was anticipating.
Yeah, I'm not way under, but I'm definitely under about 5% on both of them. And it's exactly what you said. It's not that I don't like them. When you compare them to Bucky and Saquon, each of them have a wart. So like 1 for 1, I definitely would pick them, not considering ownership. And then looking right over to ownership, I was a little surprised by their numbers being as high as they were. run that through the sim tool, which is always kind of my backstop for some of the bad decisions I normally would make on my own, and it actually agreed with me. So it worked out.
Man, I love when you break stuff down that way because that's just how I feel sometimes. It's like, why am I so dumb? Why do I think I'm so much smarter than this machine? The machine is smarter than I am. A lot of people would argue that everything is smarter than I am. But you know what? Those people suck. So let's go over to the wide receiver position then, where running back, I think it's pretty consolidated. If you want to take shots to get different on a Rashad White and hope something happens to Bucky Irving, good luck. Have fun. I don't know what analysis you want to hear from us about that. It's not something I'm going to predict, and it's not something that is going to get valued by me very highly. So this is, though, wide receiver. We have expensive options in Mike Evans, AJ Brown. These two guys are really the only like difficult to grab guys on the slate. We're playing as much Saquon as we are at 8,500. I think that has to directly affect a little bit of what you're doing with AJ Brown. Not saying they both can't have ceiling games against Green Bay, but if I were to say, hey, Green Bay has a strength, I mean, it's definitely going to be their ability at times to be able to slow down like a wide receiver one with some of the pieces that they have at the safety position specifically. But I look at AJ Brown at 7,500 as like the one that you could talk me in or out of being way over, or way under 2 on this slate. But Mike Evans, can't touch this. I am absolutely jamming Mike Evans. I see no issue whatsoever. I get that he is going up against his mortal foe in Marshawn Lattimore. I get that they have crazy history going back to the New Orleans days for Lattimore, but this is a must-win playoff game scenario. I bet they're both on their, not best behavior, but the ejection risk that I would normally actually feel inside my bones for a regular season game in week 6 does not exist today, and therefore Mike Evans is my dude. Is he yours?
He's my highest on receiver. I don't really see that changing. I'm not concerned with the Marshawn Lattimore matchup. Yeah, it's harder than, I don't know, some scrub you'd normally face, or maybe you'd face in a different matchup. But Mike Evans has won this matchup before. It's not like every time these two face off, Marshawn ices him. Like Mike Evans has won in the past too. If anything, you could argue like it's just a neutral matchup and the two of them might get the best of each other at different times in the game. But the role is just so consolidated with Mike Evans. He's pretty easy to get to. Once you get below to AJ Brown, his role, when you look at it combined with Devontae Smith, is just not quite as good. It's just a slight step down. And the stack as a whole is a little more expensive when you factor in Jalen Hurts. Yeah, it's probably a little more consolidated when you just look at the overall offense. But honestly, I think that lends itself to tournaments as well when you start going down to the McMillan and Shepard. I know I dissed him earlier, but I'm actually playing a fair amount. But when you start doing like Baker, Evans, Shepard all together, then it gets pretty easy with salary.
It gets pretty easy with the Shepard piece for sure. The Cade Otton piece even. I mean, tight end, there's no ceiling tight end guy. There's no 5K plus tight end that you have to go reach and grab. And so Saquon Barkley plus Mike Evans is not all that difficult in my opinion, especially if you're doing a lot of double tight end. I know that that tends to be the more popular build on these kind of slates because you get these guys who are projected for 7, 8, 9 at the tight end position, and they're just easily going to slide into that other spot. But trying to get a little bit different in tournaments, there are some ways to do that. And one way that I'm doing that is playing a lot of the Cortland Sutton, a lot of the Marvin Mims piece. Both of them pretty reasonable ownership. I think sub 25%, sub 15% for Marvin Mims here in our tools. And I do think that Marvin Mims has kind of come alive in a way that Sean Payton, once again, cannot deny this time. I feel like Sean Payton, you know, he needs to get out of his own way sometimes. And Marvin Mims Jr. has been revelatory the last couple of weeks for him. Now, the Kansas City one, again, I can discount that. But the Cincinnati game, some of the catches he made, you just got to have this guy on the field. He had a pretty bad fumble, too, in that game. It didn't get recovered by the defense. So, I mean, that ended up being all right. And Sean Payton was losing his mind about that. And I'm like, dude, he's fine. Marvin Mims more than made up for it. Should have won that game against Cincy, but they got it done at home against Kansas City, maybe by luck of the schedule. But Denver, definitely looking at the wide receiver pieces and being overweight to them, especially now with consolidated running back share. Like, I feel like McLaughlin, I feel pretty confident about his workload. Feel pretty confident that this is going to be a more competitive game than people expect. So Sutton plus Marvin Mims, that's my main targets here in the 6 and 5K range. Who are your main targets?
I don't think I'm playing quite as much Denver as you, and that's just because I'm not playing zero Josh Allen. But I do like using Marvin Mims, even with the route share not being quite as high as we'd like. His targets per route run is just so crazy at this point. When he's on the field for a specific purpose. But in the 6 and the 5K range, I think my favorite play is Terry McLaurin. Using him either in a vacuum or just directly with Daniels makes a lot of sense. He's super consolidated in terms of the target share at this point in the season. I do like pivoting down to Devontae Smith in this range. I think it's going to carry more ownership than I'd like, but it's still not crazy. The pricing gap between him and AJ Brown just doesn't make a ton of sense. I think it should be slightly narrower between these two. And then I am playing a fair amount of Jalen McMillan. That's more of an attachment to Baker Mayfield rather than liking him in a vacuum by himself.
Love all that breakdown. 5,200 as well. I didn't even break up my highest owned wide receiver in the entire range. Jalen McMillan, Mr. Washington himself. He's pretty good at football, Matt.
It looks like he might be the best one of the trio so far. I know Polk hasn't gotten a lot of opportunities, which could be an indictment in and of itself. That was in a New England offense where he should have played every snap. And then who knows what was going on with Chicago. So it's hard to really say one way or another on Odunze, but you can't deny McMillan has been the most successful as a rookie.
Yeah, Odunze was the most successful, I think, amongst the trio at Washington. Polk was super exciting, and Jalen McMillan, he's just kind of your, I don't know.
McMillan was the one before he got hurt at Washington. People forget or just don't pay attention. McMillan was the one before injury.
Yeah, I paid attention because all I did was lose money betting against Washington. That's all I did in 2023. I really can't tell you how much money I lost betting against Washington.
Bet Oregon in both those games, dude. I remember.
I went to the Oregon-Washington game and got to go witness it in person.
Did you go to the Oregon game this past week?
No, I didn't.
Oh, that's good. That was good choice.
No, we ended up selling our tickets, which was good. That was very important decision-making. We were just like, you know what? I got a bad feeling about it. Let me tell you, that bad feeling came to fruition.
I'm glad you saved yourself some pain in person.
Just save my wife and mother-in-law some pain in person. Like, for me, it's like, I'm still an Iowa State guy. It just is what it is. Duke basketball as well, because that's what I grew up with. Some people are not going to like that, but it is what it is.
I'm going to the game on Tuesday.
Which game?
The Duke one.
Oh, that's fun. I was thinking about going to Iowa State, Kansas on Wednesday, but I can't take that much work off. I'm going to Arizona now for Monday Night Football. I probably can't rope Greg into letting me go to Iowa State on Wednesday for Iowa State, Kansas, but is what it is. I just want to bet and attend sporting events. That's literally what I do with my life.
Yeah,
I probably am in the right profession.
It's literally the dream.
It's not so bad. Let's get into the sub 5K guys, because I did say we want to get different at some wide receivers, and we can start with Olympus Zaccheaus. I think at 4,400, he's kind of the person people feel most comfortable with, but like we've seen such a change in his role over the last couple of weeks. He's become like the certifiable go-to number two. That's redundant. I apologize, but Olympus Zaccheaus, 4,400 looks like he makes a lot of sense. Dontavian Wicks, Mr. Wicks. Whenever you get one of the trio out. And Christian Watson, NDSU's finest, another injury, Gonski for, probably all of next season now, too, getting his entire knee redone. Dontavian Wicks is going to make a lot of sense now, and he's going to make a lot of sense in best ball going into next season, so long as he is still along on this Green Bay ride. Amari Cooper, Keon Coleman, have a little smattering of these guys, but, I have so much Zaccheaus. My God, do you have as much Zaccheaus as I do? Because it doesn't feel good.
I'm pretty spread in this range, and I think that's the approach you want to take if you're jamming Saquon, Bucky, and some of the other expensive players, largely because I'm not sure you really want anyone in this range making or breaking your day. None of them are all that owned, so you can make like slight stands and come in above the field on a number of them. My biggest stand is actually Sterling Shepard as the wide receiver 3 in this offense, maybe 4 if you're including K-Dot and 5 if Bucky, but anyway, he's 3,300 and he's on the field almost every single play. With Baker, he comes along as a cheap attachment a lot for me. I'll be slightly above the field on Zaccheaus, slightly above on Dontavian Wicks. I made a personal stand, which you guys heard earlier, on Keon Coleman and Amari Cooper at the expense of Khalil Shakir. It's more so just coming down a little bit on him and up on those two. So those are 2 other guys I ended up being a little higher on. Everyone else in this range is just a sprinkling. There's a little bit of Troy Franklin, Devon Vele, some of the really peripheral receivers, Diami Brown, but those guys are just fillers in a 150 set.
I am definitely in on the idea of just trimming some of the Shakir and going to the other ancillary pieces. I like that. 5,300. I mean, it's not like if you're playing cash, obviously do not listen to anything we just said with that. This is purely large field tournaments. You're playing a 3-game slate and trying to finish first amongst a couple 100,000 lineups. I do like the idea of getting to that Amari Cooper side more. 4,900 for him. What do you think his potential number of snaps could be in this game? I know that's kind of a weird question, but
I would put it at 45%, 50%.
Yeah, I can't go over that either. And that's kind of my other concern, but you're getting such an ownership discount because of it. Like, if he were on the field all the time, he'd be one of the most popular plays on the entire slate because we know how talented he is. This is purely he's not going to be capable of playing like over 50% of snaps.
So what I did is it's basically like 8% Amari Cooper, 9% Keon Coleman. According to our projections, you're coming in ahead of the field on both of them. And it's bringing Khalil Shakir down to like 24, which is projected to be under the field on his ownership projection. So it's basically just smoothing it out between the three of them. And I mean, you look at this receiving core, I don't think Amari Cooper has a ceiling for a lot more. We don't know. He did come over late. I think Khalil Shakir kind of has a basement to his snap projection because he's been playing more due to injuries. Now with Samuel back, Keon Coleman has played 90% plus of the snaps in 2 straight games, one of them largely a meaningless game. But still, the game before, week 17, he was at 90%. I think there might be a ceiling to him that's not being captured in projections, where Shakir and Cooper are a little more projectable in what their snap share is. So Coleman is the one I have the most interest in of the three from a leverage perspective. But I think, honestly, it's going to be a rotation as it has been for much of the year.
Ready to go sub 4K.
Let's go to Sterling Shepard.
Okay, Sterling, the only guy that we're probably clicking on. I do have a tiny bit of Diami Brown. I didn't mean to completely poo-poo that idea, but like Sterling Shepard, I don't know if you heard this, Matt. He went to college with Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, he did.
I'm so over people bringing that up on every show that I tune into. But anyway, yes, he went to college with Baker Mayfield, but more importantly, he plays on the same football team as Baker Mayfield and generally runs enough routes to be more expensive than 3,300 on this slate. You have obviously the injuries that have existed to multiple wide receivers. Mike Evans was out for a while with the hamstring injury. We have Chris Godwin out for the season. Sterling Shepard has been brought along for the ride as the buddy in tow. I don't really have anything to say other than like at 3,300, I expect him to kind of be out there more than just about any other wide receiver not named Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan. So Sterling Shepard, all systems go for 2 targets, 1 catch for 8 yards. That'll be fun.
Kind of okay with it if it's, let's say it's 4 targets, 3 catches, 30 yards, and maybe a score. That would be nice.
Yeah,
because he's also giving you Saquon, Bucky, Josh Allen. So as long as those other guys do their part, I think Sterling is fine if you need to get down there. I'm playing a fair amount of him just as correlation with Baker. Not as much interest in the other guys. Diami's okay. Wish Sam Howell's still there so we could talk about their locker room narrative. And I mean, you can always do the Troy Franklin and Bo Nix because they also played together in college, as long as we're talking about these stupid narratives.
Not quite the Burrow Chase connection, LOL. That's so funny. I enjoyed that one. People like Vele a little bit. I don't like anything that isn't Sutton or Mims really at the wide receiver position today. Vele, I mean, we know what we're getting with Mr. Vele. It's going to be touchdown dependent. Like if he finds a way to get in the end zone, he's a lot bigger than what I thought he was. Like when you actually watch tape, which not going to lie, I haven't watched a lot of tape the last couple of weeks because like I'm just a red-blooded American male, and it's been a lot of holiday season stuff, and obviously the projections do the work for us, but Vele, he's way bigger than I thought he was.
I mean, he wasn't even good at college. I feel like Sean Payton, he's always done this. He has this like complex where he wants to get cute and take these like UDFAs, these really late round picks, and turn them into something. So he's the guy that like finds the diamond in the rough. And then he's not playing Marvin Mims and stuff, who's actually like a legitimately talented high draft pick. So I don't know what he's doing with Vele. Vele has not been particularly efficient when he's been on the field. He's losing targets once you actually get a talented player like Mims involved. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what Sean Payton thinks. And Sean Payton wants to be right on these late round guys. So Vele is going to be on the field more than he should be. You can play him if you want.
Where'd he go to college?
Utah.
Really? I don't remember him at Utah. But I
I
remember
wonder
like
why.
a lot of tight ends at Utah, but I don't remember him at Utah, and that's confusing.
I wonder why. Because
He
he didn't
didn't
make
exactly
any
pop.
plays. He didn't make any plays at Utah is why you don't remember him.
I love bringing college football takes in from Matt Gajewski into these shows. I also love when we see, with 10 minutes left, obviously hit the like button. I like to see those likes go up, but otherwise, I love seeing you guys finish at the top of tournaments here, and we can get you a month of the Sims tool completely free. If you just follow these simple steps, we go to the Stokastic Hall of Fame. Yes, the Hall of Fame. It's going to be beautiful. Stokastic HOF over on X. Go give it a follow. Go to stokastic.com/HOF. Download one of those beautiful badges. You need the stinking badges. It's going to be lovely for you. And here's why. If you don't have the Sims tool, well, if you finish in the top 3 of a tournament of 5,000 plus entries, you're going to get a month of it in any sport you choose completely free. You have to follow 4 simple steps. You simply send in all of the beautiful stuff here. I guess it's just 2 steps. You tweet your win to Stokastic HOF, and then when we ask you, hey, specify which sport you want it in, NBA, NFL, PGA, UFC. Yes, UFC. Back and rockin'. Shout out my girl, Mackenzie Dern, for absolutely turning it loose against Amanda yesterday. That was fun. Ribas. This is the worst ad read ever. But anyway, Stokastic HOF, everybody. Go check it out. I just almost hiccuped. While I was in the middle of the read. Just go to Stokastic HOF over on X and stokastic.com/HOF. Download the badge and put it on your DraftKings and FanDuel profile and win stuff. There we go. 8 minutes left. Let's go to tight end. We've got tight ends galore, and we've got tons of super chats. We'll get all of those right now. Let me do this. Which was the last one that they read off the last show, Jordan Klein? Jacob Dunn. Okay. So we got Jay, $1.99. Anyone else like Eckler today? Yes, Matt and I both do.
Yeah, quite a bit. If you're not playing or if you're playing 3 running backs. I'm playing Saquon, Bucky, Eckler, maybe his third price adjusted.
Yeah, these are the times you want to probably up the usage on your veteran running back who's very, very good. $2 super chat from 1 and 2. Daily reminder that Jordan Klein is a bum. 100%. Honestly, that's the greatest super chat I've ever seen in my life.
Somebody paid for that?
Anthony Atchison. Yeah, he did pay for it. It was $2 well spent. Anthony Atchison, member for 1 month, not getting cute today. Playoffs equals stud plus targets. Yes, that's why we're playing Austin Eckler. Josh Chapman, $1.99. Bo Nix, ? I sure hope so.
Eric's a little more in on Bo Nix than me. I don't hate it. I think he has a path. I don't know if it's the most likely, but I'm not out on Nix.
Yeah, if I win money with Bo Nix and I can show that to my wife, it's always a good thing. Steve McGee, member for 44 months. Thoughts on Batty in large field? He's 4K. If you had to play a 4K running back, he'd be it. But man, is there an opportunity cost at running back? You're going to need him to score. You're going to need him to actually be involved the way Sean Payton's describing in like a not even just like a romantic, I think he's talented way, but like in an actual, we're going to roll out this guy who's barely played for us all season in a must-win spot. Like, I can't imagine that's actually true.
I don't think it is either.
These coaches, man. These coaches.
If anyone was going to do it, it is him, but I don't think it happens.
He's such a twat. Like,
I mean, his team is good. I can't really throw that much shade at it, but sometimes I'm just like, man, are you actually optimizing what you're doing? And how would I know? I'm not an NFL coach, but I have that thought, whether it's warranted or not.
I think you'd be a great NFL coach for what it's worth. I can tell you one thing:
Maybe
you would never
like
be caught dead at the movies.
Builder?
You would be watching film every second of the day in that office and just like eating hot dogs. Like, do you know how many free hot dogs you'd get as an NFL coach? Ask Mike McCarthy.
He's well known about around Green Bay and Wisconsin for his behavior. I don't have to ask.
Get in my belly. Tight end position. We got Dalton Kincaid. I think he's awesome in tournaments and every single format. Zach Ertz pulling a lot more ownership here, but tight end, why don't you tell the people who some of your favorite targets are, because it's pretty spread out, but man, do we want to play a lot of 2 tight end builds today.
I have a fair amount of 2 tight end builds. it's the alternative is kind of like, all right, do I really want to use Sterling Shepard in a lot of lineups? If you don't, you get more 2 tight end builds. And I think it makes sense. These guys are underpriced on DraftKings specifically compared to their roles. So you get Kincaid at 4K, which is just a laughable price tag on him. We talked a lot about like the Keon Coleman, Amari Cooper, Khalil Shakir stuff. The cleanest path to a stacking partner is straight up Kincaid if you're running just one partner with him. Goddard, I think, is interesting. Looked pretty good in his return off injured reserve.
I thought he looked way better than I was expecting. And he played a lot in a game that everybody else sat out, basically.
Yeah, I think their goal was just trying to get his wheels back under him, which he did a phenomenal job of. We know even with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, he's going to be the third pass catcher there, and he's not leaving the field. So even with everyone healthy, 3,900 is a completely reasonable price tag. Kraft projects pretty well, better than he would have if Watson was in. He is not. So Kraft, I think, is fine. Even Ertz, who's a little more expensive, but still really no problem getting there. And then kind of the dice roll of the group is Cade Otton. But if he's back to his role from earlier this season, he's even a good play. My highest owned in order, Kincaid, Goddard, Kraft, Ertz, Otton. But I'm playing a fair amount of 2 tight end builds, so all these guys are pretty owned for me.
I don't have a better breakdown than that. I mean, that's perfectly said. Play a lot of these guys, rotate them around. Obviously, the Sims tool will be doing that for you. And the Sims tool also pretty spread out at defense. I'm curious what you think about this, because there are some interesting ways to get different at defense today. And I think one of the main ones is just going way down to the cellar. Do I think the Packers win this football game? No. Do I have a betting ticket on the Green Bay Packers because I thought that there was a chance Jalen Hurts would still be in concussion protocol? Yes. Do I think that I would like that money back? Absolutely. But $2,600 defense on this slate is pretty valuable. I feel better about that than I even do the Broncos defense 2,400. I just need the Broncos to stand pat, and Bo Nix needs to play well. That's the key to that upset. Plus, it should have never been plus 400 in my opinion, with the Bills defense being as shaky as it's been at times. But I'm very spread out at defense. The Packers, my highest owned on the slate though, which is a little bit strange, but I suppose that goes hand in hand with the fact that I don't have much Hurts. I suppose it also goes hand in hand with the fact that I have like no Allen, so I should get to some Denver defense. Although, once again, I'm just hoping Allen doesn't completely put up the 35-40 ball that you would absolutely need in that early portion. How are you handling defense to round out our show?
Yeah, first of all, before we get off air, another super chat from Dumont.
Oh, there we go.
2121 came in. He won $10,000 off a $15 single bullet. Little under 3,000 entries, but he says due to you. So thank you, Dumont. That's incredible. Hope you enjoy that win. That's a big score, man.
Oh, he gave us some loonies. We got some Canadian money now for next Christmas. That'll be fantastic. Thank you so much, Dumont. And congratulations. Obviously, you love to see that, but defense rounded out for the people.
Yes, I mean, the 2 easy ones, like the layups, are your expensive ones, the big favorites. They'll be owned, and I think you can actually go down to some of these cheaper defenses and just hope for some wild scores. 2 I like playing are actually Tampa Bay and Washington when they make sense in lineups. Obviously, I'm not running out a ton of Washington against my Baker Mayfield stacks, but the game has a massive total, and it will be owned to some degree. There is a little bit of volatile play on both sides, so I think you can use the defenses there and save some salary. I'm not super interested in the Packers and the Broncos, but I do have 10% of both. But otherwise, it's just the chalk defenses, the 2 you'd expect up at the top.
Let's round out the show with this. Your favorite stack to utilize on today's slate.
Baker to Evans. If we're getting in the big tournaments, throw Otton in.
Yeah, Baker to McMillan and Otton, and then obviously Mike Evans as well. I've got 68% McMillan. I've got 58% of Mike Evans. So we are jamming that spot, it would appear. And a lot of QB +3 there on the Tampa Bay side. Go team. Favorite running back play?
Oh, easy. Bucky.
Yeah, Bucky Irving by a mile. Favorite contrarian piece on the entire slate?
Keon Coleman.
Ooh, Austin Eckler, going to be mine. That is going to do it for us. I mean, we kind of landed this plane perfectly. 3-game NFL slate in the books. Do we have NFL Live before lock going tonight? We absolutely have to, don't we, Jordan Klein?
We do.
Let's go. We got Matt Bellman. We got our guy, Matt Bellman. He's going to be going alongside EMAC. EMAC 2020, what is it? 2028. You got to wait a little bit longer for that presidency. Oh, EMAC. I thought you were going to get it done this season. I thought you were. You didn't. It's a bummer. Matt _Gajeski over on X. Any final words for the people as we get out of here?
Yeah, crazy. We're already here at the playoffs, but thank you guys for always coming and hanging out with us on Sundays. Can't wait to finish out the season with you all. Let's go out and make some money today.
Jordan Klein, who looks too fine to be denied. I mean, look at this guy smashing LA Kings hat. I mean, that thing is vintage. The kids love that one. It's beautiful. That super chat was awesome. You do suck. All right, let's get out of here. Have a great day, everybody. Go enjoy some football. Go Broncos. And then tomorrow, Skol. We'll see you later.